Thanks for tuning in to Proline TV as we take a look at the latest NFL playoff picture as well as the college football bracket that came out just a few days ago, as I'm sure everybody that would be watching this show is all too familiar with. And I did not produce a show, nor did I want to produce a show on Sunday, right after the announcement was made regarding the 12 teams. I did not feel like doing it on Monday. To be honest with you, for the first time in my life, I started to think about the time and effort I put into college football over on a weekly basis, all season long, and dating back to 30 years plus being a broadcaster, and whether or not at this time in my career that how much more I want to be involved in spending all of my time in the sport, my favorite sport. If you had to rank them, football is 1-2. So if you rank them, it's college football. See, I always, it's a funny. A few years ago, anybody asked me what my favorite sport is, I would say, well, it's college football up until the end of the regular season. Then once the regular season's over, I dropped college football as my favorite sport down to 7 or 8 because I just could not stand the system after the season ended. At the BCS, I thought these 4-team playoff, I thought it was a joke. Complete joke. And so even though I watched it and even though I was a fan of it, it just wasn't as exciting or interesting to me as the regular season in college football. And so now we talked about this last week about how things have changed, where a lot of followers of college football, a lot of writers, analysts, and so forth, experts would say things like, they're never going to be happy if there's 12 teams. They're going to complain that what happened to team number 13 and so forth and so on. And I made the remark last week of saying, well, I never would have believed that to be true, except for the fact that the system has changed. And now that the system has changed, and now that team 13, Texas, Vanderbilt, BYU, those teams, Notre Dame, forgot to mention them. I can't believe, have a chance to win the championship. Whereas 3-4 years ago, that would never be the case. Team 13 would never have a chance to win a championship. Heck, Team 7 would never have a chance to win a championship in college football just 3 years ago. So that's why I changed my mind and felt, okay, well, look, we all wanted 16 and we're going to get to 16 eventually and so forth and so on. And all right, whatever, blah, blah, blah. You just have to deal with it. And I was ready to deal with it. And then came Sunday. And all of the little doubts that I had about how the committee mysteriously jumped Alabama over Notre Dame after barely beating a losing team in their final regular season game. And we talked about that, about how the committee wasn't going to discuss a Notre Dame, Miami, or any matchup with two teams in their head-to-head unless they were neck and neck, right beside each other. Still didn't think that was the reason. Nah, they're not going to do that. No, I'm not going to believe it. I'm just not. I can't believe it. So, and the thing that I really didn't even, and I think a lot of people didn't even put a lot of thought into, because everybody was talking about so many different aspects of this Notre Dame Miami deal, is, well, if you moved Alabama ahead of Notre Dame the week before. And I think this was the main reason why I doubted it, that anything conspiratorial would happen, is because Notre Dame was still ahead of Miami in the rankings and neither team was playing. So if neither team is playing and there's no like situation where you would say, well, yeah, but the strength of schedule changed dramatically because team A beat team B in the championship game, which did not happen. That did not happen. Nothing like that happened. So because nothing like that happened, well, why would I suspect Miami would jump Notre Dame then? But the reason they jumped Notre Dame was because, well, now that, remember, this is what they said. Well, now that they're neck and neck, now that they're beside each other, well, we'll go ahead and we will now use head-to-head. Yeah, but they were head-to-head the week before. You could have used them at head-to-head then. And Miami could have been over Notre Dame coming into the final championship weekend. But you didn't move them. So again, what was the difference? And this is one of those arguments that, you know, when you have you probably see this on TV a lot now with politics, where someone on one side takes a side of an issue and the other person takes the other side, and you're hearing what it is, instead of getting like a good debate where one side is trying to get their point across and they're trying to see whether or not it's possible that you might be able to convince someone, not necessarily completely changing their mind, but understanding the other person's side. That doesn't happen anymore. We know that. That's part of politics, which is why politics sucks. I'm not saying anything new here, but you know, when you get into that situation where that person is going over their side and you're explaining things, and at some point you just say to yourself, why am I even trying? What am I? I'm wasting my breath here. They're not looking at common sense or reason. And when that happens, when you take common sense, reason out of the equation, then this is what you get. And you get a situation where you know that something that person, or let's just say now, let's move it into this college football playoff dilemma we have in this controversy. Let's move it into that. And you get into this room with these individuals. And look, this is not about someone on one side going, hey, Notre Dame, and someone on another side going, hey, Miami, and another guy going, hey, Alabama. That's not what's happening. And we know it. It's a fact that they're all they're doing is deciding who they want in. And they're just going to put those teams in for whatever reason of why they want those teams in. And then they're just going to tell us and come up with some dumbass reason. And in years past, these reasons would be wrong to the average person, kind of silly, but we can kind of understand it a little bit. Like we're going back to that debate, politics, either side. Can't you just understand just a little bit? That's it. You understand. And that's kind of what it was like. It was like, okay, didn't like it, but we understood. And we just moved on. And so the most recent obvious one was the Florida State situation. You lose the quarterback. And look, I was on the side of Florida State big time. I know there were a lot of other fans on either side, but I think a lot more fans were on Florida State side. And I even probably have a video you could check out from that because that was only a couple of years ago. So it's probably on the RLAD site. It could be on my other site at Prime Sports Network. And you'll see the argument I made for Florida State and so forth. So I thought the argument I made, like others, was extremely valid. I thought we were on the side of the right. But okay, I understood because if you look at it from that point of view, do you really want to put the team in? There's only 4 teams. You put this team in. They don't have their best player. You know they're not going to win. Now, maybe there can be some sort of miracle type situation, even though you look back at what happened to Ohio State years prior when their backup quarterback came in and won a national championship. That was something that I targeted, and I think others did too. But still, the fact was, okay, I get where you're coming from. I don't like it. I don't agree with it, but I get it. It's all changed now. It's now at a point where whether you want to call it fraud, I don't know what I don't look at it necessarily completely as fraud as much as I do with incompetence, because this is the NCAA. This is how they do things. They're an incompetent bunch. Why would we think otherwise that something like this would happen when you take a look at how they've handled the whole transfer portal situation, which is still kind of going on? I mean, how could they not foresee this season that someone like Coach Kiffin would decide that, hey, I've got to make a decision up real quick because recruiting, those decisions are up just a few days after the regular season ends, and I can't be recruiting for one team that I'm leaving and not for the team I'm going to. So I've got to make that decision prior, and that wipes out the opportunity for some, definitely for Kiffin, to not coach the team that is now in the playoffs without their head coach. How could they not foresee that is complete incompetence? Because it's not fraud, because unless someone can explain to me how the NCAA benefits from this financially, and if somebody can, I'll look at it and maybe we'll have a different story. We'll have a different look at it. But that's complete incompetence. And that's why I'm at a point right now where I can't invest the time that I invest every season for this sport to just fuck me at the end of the season like this. I can't do it. And for me, financially, which is a whole part of why I do as much research, just like anybody else that wants picks. You want to handicap the games yourself. You need assistance from it. It's not what you do. You've got your regular job. You do it 50 hours a week, 60 hours a week. You need somebody that's doing 50, 60 hours a week of this to give you the proper information to help you make your picks. That's all understandable, and that's why I do this. And obviously, as Jim Feist has said repeatedly, that, hey, whatever picks I give you, I'm making. So if I give you like, hey, this is my 5-star pick of the week, or my, it's my 5-star pick of the year, where you can bet Jim's betting thousands of dollars on that 5-star pick of the year, guaranteed. And so I'm the same way, except I don't have the budget that Jim has. So it's all relative. But the fact is, and the point is that all the time and effort I put into it, there's a reason. Number one, really, again, you got to look at it this way. If I do all the research like I've done before, and let's say I do all the time, and let's say I just decided that Well, let's just say for whatever reason, I wasn't on a channel, I wasn't doing radio at the time, and for one full season, I was just I was retired for a season. I took the year off, work wise, and I was just doing it for myself. I would say that if I spend right now, I would say I spend about, let's see, on a Monday, and that's you're looking at 4, 8, 10. You're looking at somewhere around 20 hours, give or take, between Sunday night and Tuesday night. So again, give or take, just on college football. And of course, I have to do a few other things during the day. I've got other shows I got to produce, the things I have to do for the channel and for personally. So and I don't know how people do it. Like I don't know how people go 4 or 5 hours of sleep. I know Mark can do it. I can't do it, and it's not that I can't do it. It's just that I can't function that way. And so I need to get at least 7 hours of sleep. I'll pick up my sleep later in the week when I have more time and on the weekends, but I need at least 7. And the reason I mention that is because, again, all the time that I have to put into it, there's only so much time I can put into it based on those hours. The point is that with all that time, let's say it's 20 hours. I'm just going to round it out. Okay, now I said that's 20 hours of work. So that's what I do for the show, and I'm ready and I'm preparing and so forth. If I'm just doing it for myself and I'm off the air for a year, I could probably cut that about 5 hours, maybe. But for the most part, it's still at least 15, if not more. Therefore, I am going to continue to, and I probably shouldn't say that. I probably say we're cutting it in half, close to half, 60%. Let's say 60%. So what I'm saying here is that when I'm doing this for myself and for nobody else, I still have to put in a lot of time and effort because I'm putting my own money into it, and I'm trying to invest in this in order to bring in revenue for myself. So I'm going to continue to do that. I will, because I know so much of it. I've done it my entire life, and I'm not going to stop doing that. But what I will do is I'll say to myself, okay, hey, you know what? I'm doing a 2-hour or 3-hour show every week in college football because I have all this information and I want to share it to everybody. But I'm going to have to cut that down in half now. I have to wind up saying to myself, there's got to be a different way for me to do this because I'm not a professional handicapper. Jim is, Mark is. These guys are the ones that do this for a living. And that's who I want us as a channel to continue to go in that direction. I'm not looking to pick up anybody's mantle as a professional handicapper. But what I can do is still provide good information and do it where I'm now breaking it down into specific needs. Like instead of going through every conference and every game and almost every team, I'm now going to say, okay, you know what? Well, pick out like one game out of every conference. These are the best games of the week. No matter what conference it is, these are the key injuries, the top 5 injuries of the week, stuff like that. So now instead of me next year in 2026, spending 20, 25 hours a week preparing for a show and then doing 3 or 4 hours of live coverage on the air, talking about college football mainly, I'm just not going to do it anymore. And I can't do it anymore because I am getting royally screwed. And I just think there are other ways and better ways for me to spend my time. I don't think I'm the only one that feels this way. Everybody's got their own businesses or their own hobbies and how they handle it. But the fact is that I'm here's here's how it really hurts me. And I've talked about this for a couple of months. I really believe Notre Dame would have been the best team when it's all said and done. They would have been in the playoffs. I put money on them in the futures. I felt pretty confident that they were going to make a run. And then, hey, I just get to the championship game. I can hedge some money. And there you go. And I felt very confident about this happening. And so they just basically took that away from me, just like they took it away from all the Notre Dame fans. So all the Notre Dame fans have been, and those are they get really the shaft more than I do, because they're the fans who live, eat, and breathe Notre Dame football. And how the committee just decided to arrange the 12 teams, not knock down Alabama, not even one spot after they lost a championship game. There's no excuse for it. There's no, and like I said, no, well, now that they're head to head and all that kind of stuff, because we've talked about it before. I don't know why nobody brings this up enough, but being head to head in week 1 is one thing, but being head to head when you're the team on the road, how do I care? Oh, I'm supposed to watch the replay of the Notre Dame Miami game like 50 times on the ACC network over the past year to be brainwashed into thinking that Miami's better than Notre Dame. I only needed to watch the game once to know that on that day, at that time of season, Miami was the better team. Okay, yes. I mean, what you're not going to convince me in any way, shape, or form, no matter how many times I watched the Notre Dame Miami game in week 1, that at this time of season, the way everything has gone on over a long season, that, oh, you know what? Yeah, Miami's still better just because they beat them in week 1. That's it. That's all that matters. Oh, doesn't it matter where the game was played? How come that's not brought up enough? How come where the game is played does not get thrown into the equation? It matters. If it didn't matter, then, hey, everybody would be playing on neutral fields. Point, since it does matter, that's why when we're in the playoffs, after the first round, once we get every team that's left, including the 4 teams that get the bye, every team is in a neutral field situation. Hey, why aren't those 4 teams that are ranked, why don't they get a home game? Because it would be unfair for them to get a home game under this situation, the way the games are played. It's not played like the NFL. Is that going to continue? Yeah, it kind of is, because the money is more in these neutral situations. You can't have one team, unless, of course, you want to say all of a sudden it's not going to matter, and the road team is going to wind up making just as much money as the home team. They're going to split everything, and NCAA still winds up making just as much money if it wasn't a neutral site game, because it's all about money. Now, I don't know what the answer is to that, but maybe that's coming soon, because nobody cares. Like, does anybody really care about any of these playoff games getting a bowl game designation? I haven't the slightest idea where any of these games, whatever bowl games these games are played under. No idea, unless somebody's got to throw it in my face, because it doesn't matter anymore. That's just the way that it is. Nobody cares. So there's no more bowl games as far as the playoffs are concerned. That's another thing that these idiots just fail to comprehend. If you want to maintain a Rose Bowl or whatever, well, make that part of, make that part of the playoffs in a way where you're going to somehow remove a couple of regular season games, and you're still going to be able to save what the Rose Bowl used to represent. Team from the Big Ten, team from the Pac-12. That doesn't happen anymore, no matter what the Pac-12 is going to look like now. But the point is, team from the Big Ten, maybe you get another conference winner. Hey, they go play in the Rose Bowl, and it just has more of a meaning at that point because you still have, say, 4 more rounds to go. But because it's the big, and that's it. Once you get past the bowl weekend where you can have these, hey, it's got to be, though. It can't be no SEC team in the Rose Bowl, which is so ridiculous. So you just go back to using the tradition that way. But they can't do that. This is not something that they thought of or cared about. Of course, the whole tradition thing is what they've completely wiped out, which I was okay with as long as it was done properly. And they've completely fucked it up. They have completely screwed everything up. So now, tradition no more. And you can't even get the right teams in a 12-team playoff. I mean, I didn't even understand, because last year things were a little bit different. Remember, we had that situation where it was the first 12-team playoff, and then people were, well, why is a team from the Big 12 getting a bye? Oh, got to change that. And then all of a sudden, now, because last year it was like, okay, it was the conference champions would get a bye, and then we'd get one team from the group of 5, and that was it. That was your story, and I was completely fine with it. I think that a lot of fans were fine with it. Then, we have a problem because the Big 12 team is not good, and they get a bye, so we got to change things. Now, this is all going on after the season, and you hear about the changes, but you really don't understand what it is that you're like, I'm worried about that when the college football season comes. I don't know. It's okay. It seems like they've now remedied that. And okay, it's fixed. But then you look at it further, and I didn't even really understand it myself because, again, I'm doing so much work. I'm doing so much work from a week-to-week basis on college football. I'm not looking at the playoffs. They've changed the seeding. Now you get a bot. Now, is it going to rank it? Not every conference team is going to be is going to get the bot. Okay, great. And then all of a sudden you look into it and it's like, well, how did we get a second group of 5 team in here? What did you do? So now you change the rules. So a weaker Power 4 conference champion didn't get a bye. But by doing that, somehow now there's this rule about you've got to be top-ranked conference champion no matter where it's from. Opening up the door to a second group of 5 team? Nobody understood this. I could guarantee this. Nobody. The majority of college football fans had no idea that a second group of 5 team could have been in until probably a week ago. How did this happen? And then if you look at it from Duke's point of view, we all know Duke didn't deserve to be in the ACC championship, let alone based on the system, based on the way it was. Okay, if you're going to say Duke gets in over Notre Dame, that sort of thing, there's no way Duke belongs in there. So let's just get Duke out. But the fact now that they allowed a second group of 5 team to come in, you have to go back and say to yourself, well, wait a second. I don't care how bad Duke was. That's a Power 4 conference champion playing Power 4 teams on a weekly basis. So, of course, their schedule could look like Duke's. But they'll take a second group of 5 team who winds up playing a bunch of bad teams this season from the conference. And somehow, because of the way they're ranked, and I'm not trying to tell you that James Madison isn't a good group of 5 team because they were my preseason number 1 group of 5 team, as you know. But that doesn't even make any sense to me. How does even that work? So if I'm Duke, I'm saying, wait a second. I'm the ACC champion, Power Four conference champion. I'm not getting to the playoffs, but neither is Notre Dame. And they're going to allow James Madison in and Tulane over our team who won a Power Four championship. How did they not know this? Because they don't know what they're doing. They're absolutely and utterly incompetent. And when it really begins to hurt you in the wallet, like it has hurt me at this particular time, that is when I say, why am I putting all of this time and effort into it and I'm going to lose money over it, not just the money I invested, but the money that I knew I had a good chance of earning. You're just going to take that away from me because you want certain teams in your playoff system, your playoff bracket, and you're going to do anything to make sure that that's how it works out. And then you're just going to spit a bunch of bullshit to us. And hey, you know where they're probably learning this from. And this is why I said this when I let off by saying that college football, my favorite sport until you get to the end of the regular season. This is the way it used to be. Now, that all changed last year. And I was like, hey, college football, my favorite sport all the time now. We got a playoff system, a real playoff system. But all of a sudden, now it's like you've now put me in a situation where I am being completely screwed, not just as a fan, but in business. And if you're going to do that, then I'm going to walk away at some level. And I think a lot of fans have already walked away. We're still going to be fans. They can't take that away from us. They never will. I'll be rooting for my teams and following my teams for as long as I can comprehend anything in this world. I'm sure there's going to be a point, who knows, 20, 30, 40 years from now, where the only thing I'll really be able to do is just follow my team. That's it. I don't have time to follow 135 teams or whatever in college football. And I might not even follow 32 in the NFL. I might just say, I'm just going to follow my one team in the NFL and my two teams in college. And that's all that's necessary. And I'll watch their games every week. And I'm sure I'll get to that point. But they have screwed the tradition part. And now they're screwing just the general fun of it. And it's now like completely politicized. That's the reason why I didn't like it before when they ended the regular season. And I had it good for 1 year. 1 year, I could say college football was my favorite sport. Regular season and postseason, I had it for 1 year. But once again, politics, just like it was before, because it was all politics when it was only two teams and then even just four teams, all politics. Everything was politics within their little communities. And they've somehow, even with 12 teams, they have found a way to maintain their political control. And I guess they've learned from our politicians in DC that, hey, all I got to do is give them some bullshit reason. They'll be angry for a week or two, and then they'll move on, and then we'll get what we want anyway. So, I'm looking at these games, these bowl games. There are a few good ones. We've got a bowl game this week, but we have 5 and 7 teams in bowls now. We all know that there's way too many bowls. We've said that forever. Nobody cares about it. I heard something, somebody say, I read somewhere where they said that the bowl coverage was up last year ratings-wise. Okay, first of all, I want to see that information. Number two, you're talking about just the bowls and not the playoffs. Because knowing the way that they work, They're probably including the playoffs because there are bowls in the playoffs. Well, of course, the ratings were up last year as far as the bowls were concerned because we had a playoff, a real playoff. But tell me how the bowls, the actual crappy bowls, the teams that don't go to the playoffs, tell me about those ratings. Because nobody will convince me that the bowl season of non-playoff teams actually saw an uptick in traffic. No, couldn't happen. I don't care how much money could be made in these games. Who on earth, and we're talking about percentages, who on earth is going to spend a considerable amount of money on these games? Not to mention, we have these. I mean, of course, we also, what happened last year is going to continue again this year. Players are going to leave, whatever. Let's see. I'm not going to play for the draft. We already see the. Matter of fact, I'm going to be doing a bowl special before I think it starts. The first one. Actually, let me see. We'll probably do something. Let's see. Let me see what the starting point would be. Maybe the 19th. That is 9 days from now. So sometime, which is the Myrtle Beach Bowl. It starts at 11 o'clock in the morning, Kennesaw in Western Michigan. So we'll probably do a bowl special next week, and we'll start with that game, that day. And taking a look at, because look at these games before then. You've got Troy and see, actually, this matchup, like I said, there's about 5 good matchups I like. This is one I accept because you have the runner-up. This is actual logic that we don't get very often in bowls, but this is the logic that I've always talked about that we needed, which was you get the runner-up from the Sun Belt against the runner-up from the Conference USA. Hey, that's good. You got a good matchup of really good teams from the 2 conferences that represented in the playoffs. You get Old Dominion, which everybody would classify as the second best team in the Sun Belt, and South Florida, which same thing. Once they didn't go to the championship game, just like Old Dominion, but everybody knows South Florida probably is the second best team in the Sun Belt, in the American, if not the best. So you get a good matchup there. Louisiana and Delaware. Now, I don't know how Delaware got to a bowl when they just got here into the FBS, but hey, I think that's good. They must have waived it, but it's still Louisiana and Delaware. Same thing for Missouri State. They weren't allowed to go to a bowl. They waived it. Problem is, does anybody want to see Louisiana against Delaware and Missouri State against Arkansas State? Now, I do like the Kennesaw State-Western Michigan matchup because we get the 2 champions playing each other from the MAC and the Conference USA in the Myrtle Beach Bowl. Memphis, North Carolina State, that's a good matchup. Let me get past these playoff games. Okay. You get Toledo, Louisville, that's a good matchup. Western Kentucky and Southern Miss. Okay, why don't we have, like, why isn't Louisiana in the New Orleans Bowl? I mean, don't they want to sell tickets? UNLV, Ohio, that's okay. Cal, Hawaii, that's good. I'm good with that. Northwestern has to play Central Michigan. New Mexico, why isn't New Mexico in the New Mexico Bowl? Does that make any sense? Like if Hawaii, every time Hawaii wins or is bowl eligible, they're in the Hawaii Bowl. That's a lock. Why haven't they done that with New Mexico? Why is New Mexico not in the New Mexico Bowl? Miami of Ohio against Fresno State. Now, here's a good matchup: North Texas and San Diego State in the New Mexico Bowl. But this is a unique matchup because we get one of the top offenses in college football to go up against one of the top defenses in college football. And two teams that were two of the top teams in their respective conferences. Tennessee, Illinois, that's okay. Rice and Texas State. And the Armed Forces Bowl. Why? How come there's not? Where's Army and Navy? Matter of fact, where are they? What's up with Army and Navy? Wake Forest, Mississippi State. See, here's the other thing. You go into these 5 and 6 games and you talk about, well, there's a big storyline in the last week of the season. You know, this 5 and 6 team, they have to win to be bowl eligible. It's all or nothing. Now we know better. That's not going to be the case anymore. It's just not. So from now on, at the end of the regular season, when a team is 5 and 6, you're just going to say, well, you know, this team can be, you know, they get in, they get this win, they're bowl eligible, but, you know, if they lose the game, then they might go to a bowl anyway at 5 and 7. Like, again, anybody wants to see a 5 and 7 team in a bowl, except the team that's 5 and 7, I guess. And even that's not the case because, heck, I didn't want to see Rutgers in, and I'm glad they declined to go to a bowl at 5 and 7. Arizona SMU, that's okay. And you got the game. So, yeah, I mean, Army Navy, what's up with that? Who are they playing? They must have, I guess they're waiting or something. I mean, what's up with Army and Navy? Did they miss it somewhere where that's the Army Navy game? That's the end of their season? And they couldn't have put like Air Force. Did they have 5 wins? No, I don't think they had 5 wins. That's probably why. I mean, who cares though, right? Really, does anybody care that a team is 5 and 7 or 4 and 8? No. Well, I mean, if you're going to be 5 and 7, what's the difference in 4 and 8? So put Air Force in the Armed Forces Bowl, for crying out loud. I'd rather see that. Okay. John, here's the problem, John, regarding Notre Dame in a conference. They're never going to go to a conference for football. And the reason they're never going to go to a conference in football is because they don't need it. It's because they're the only football team in the country, NFL or college, the only team that has their own network. And when they're not on that network, they're still on network TV in the best possible situation that they could be looking for. So, you know, every team sometimes, I'm on the Big Ten channel, and you got to go look for it. I'm on Peacock. It's behind a paywall, all that stuff. You know, so, you know, not every team, you know, you're a fan, you're going to follow them. But, hey, you know, there's even some times where, like if Rutgers is on Peacock, I mean, especially because they haven't developed yet to the point where I would care if they're on Peacock, I don't watch it. I just say, okay, I'm not paying for them. I'm not paying to watch that. Anyway, so that's the whole thing with Notre Dame, is that they're making so much money because of their deal with NBC that there's just no reason for them to go to a conference, and they don't care. They'll take the loss. They'll take the loss of not being affiliated with a conference, because what they could just do is instead is say, hey, wait a second. We got screwed here, and we're not going to a conference. So what do we need to do to make sure we don't get screwed again? Well, let's just not put those types of games together back to back. They might even just say, well, from now on, let's just play one really tough conference team. I mean, one Power 4 team, really good Power 4 team, and then that's it. Or they can say, if we play two really good Power 4 teams, just don't put them back to back. It'll be kind of stupid that way. So there are ways that Notre Dame can kind of work around that, because they're going to be playing Indiana in a few years. I know that. I don't know what Notre Dame's schedule is like in the next few years regarding the really tough Power 4 teams. But I do know Indiana is going to be coming up in a few years, just because I was checking on Indiana, because I wanted to see, when does Indiana finally start playing good teams out of conference? And it's not till they play Notre Dame. I think it's 29 or 30. They play back-to-back, I believe it is. And I do look, I see what you're saying with the schedule, but like, where is their schedule? Actually, let me pop it up so everybody can see it. Where am I? Let's see, Notre Dame. And then I'm going to get schedule. All right, let's move it into position and put it on the screen. Put them on the screen. Where's that from? Put them on the screen. Does anybody know where that's from? Okay, let's see. I want to see, you know, what's that? Here it is. Let's check out their schedule. Okay, so here it is. All right. So when the season began, 2025, we looked at this schedule, John, and or at least this, I'm just going to give you my opinion on Notre Dame's schedule when the season began. I went, wow, you got Miami, Texas A&M to start the season. You got Arkansas, who could be a bowl team in the SEC. That's what people thought. I mean, and look, we all saw what Arkansas did this year. They lost like 5 games. They had leads in the fourth quarter. So that looked, hey, it's on the road. And look, right after that's Boise State. And Boise State's good every year. So we looked at that. And then USC, they get USC a couple of weeks after that. And then this bottom of the schedule was the easy part. No question about it. But this right here, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And you never know what you're going to get on North Carolina State. But for the most part, these first 7, we were like, well, Miami, Texas A&M, at Arkansas, Boise State, USC, man, that's going to be tough. And then Boise State did not have a good year. And Arkansas, you knew that, don't forget that Arkansas game, if you were watching, that was an easy one because they were a very small favorite, Notre Dame, and they should have been a much larger favorite. But the fact that they were a very small favorite comparatively shows you that, hey, Arkansas can beat Notre Dame, or they can hang with Notre Dame. So, you know, from year to year, sometimes they do have an easy, and like one of these types of deals most of the season. I get that. Maybe that's part of the reason why they did this, was to strengthen up the schedule. I don't know. But next year, look, this isn't going to be good because Wisconsin sucks. And I know that they came back and they played better. But unless there's going to be, look, here's the thing with the way that the program has been run under Fickle, is that until he goes back to the roots of Wisconsin ball, before he took over and changed everything and wanted to be some sort of pass happy program, if he can go back to that and say, look, I fucked up, I got to go back to the roots of Wisconsin Badger football, and even though I've got more money to spend, that's where I'm spending it. I'm spending it on the line of scrimmage. I'm spending it. I got to get a 5-star type running back in here. And I'm spending our defense strong. That's Wisconsin Badgers football. He does that, and they'll have a shot to be competitive next year. But if he's like, oh, no, we're going to do what I wanted to do here, but now I got more money, so I'm going to get better receivers and a better quarterback. And he does that, and it's not going to matter. So now Michigan State, they're going to be tougher. See how much money they got? So they're going to be tougher. They got a better coach now, too. Nobody knows about North Carolina. It's on the road. No idea. I mean, if he can get a quarterback there, I know the defense will be strong because the defense actually is pretty good this year. And if, again, that's all going to depend. Then he gets Miami and USC. So this is not as tough as this year's schedule, believe it or not. That's why I think this year's schedule was actually pretty tough on paper. But hey, who knows? Next year, what if Michigan State's a lot better? Wisconsin's a lot better. North Carolina, a lot better. USC. So there's still an SMU's in there. I don't want to forget them. Look, is it SEC? No, it's not. Nothing's like the SEC, not even the Big Ten. But let's just say, if we compare it to a Big Ten team, let's just compare it to, I don't know, let's just compare it to like Indiana's schedule this year, or even Ohio State's. They had a couple of tough games. So Notre Dame would say, well, we've got Miami. We got potentially SMU, because they could still be really good next year. You never know. USC, and you don't know about Michigan State, North Carolina, Wisconsin. I'm not going to give them the benefit of the doubt. So I'm just going to say, based on what we've seen the last couple of years, Miami, SMU, and USC. What the problem is this year's schedule, because it doesn't have two really good teams. See, this year's schedule actually is very comparable to an Indiana or Ohio State, because Indiana, Ohio State, where is Indiana? Where did they play? All right. So tough teams for Indiana were Iowa, Oregon, and Illinois. That's it. Okay. That's it. It was supposed to be Penn State, but it never materialized. So 3 tough games: Illinois, Iowa, Oregon. And Notre Dame had Miami, Texas A&M, and USC. Let's say those are the top 3. Well, who had the tougher schedule? Notre Dame against Indiana. Who did Ohio State have? Ohio State. Their toughest games, they had Texas, at Washington. And I say at Washington because they're a completely different team. If it was at Ohio State, I wouldn't even put them in this list if it was at Ohio State. At Washington, Illinois, Michigan. So Texas, at Washington, Illinois, and Michigan. So Texas and Michigan were the toughest games they played this year. Again, at Miami, Texas A&M is pretty equal. Now, that was this year, though. Now, I understand that at the end of this run, these last 5 games here, I completely get that that's really bad. But I'm not going to go with 5 games. Instead, just take a look, like, for instance, take a look at the last 3 games of the season here. No, the last 6 games of the season for Indiana. They had Michigan State, UCLA, Maryland, Purdue, Wisconsin, and the Penn State game, which was tough, but could have been tougher. So that's pretty bad. But that's only this year. There are some teams like USC. Did you see USC's schedule next year? First of all, let me see. In the future years, you got Auburn. Wow, they're only okay. Auburn. We have no idea what Georgia Tech will be like. Virginia Tech could be a good one. At Clemson, that could still be a good one. And Michigan State would be a lot better in 2 years. So this one's tougher, I think, than this one, potentially. Then they get back to Texas, at Auburn, at Virginia Tech, Clemson again, Miami again. So you see, even though there are powder puffs on Notre Dame's schedule, they do have good schedules from time, every other year or so. So let me see. Do they have? No. You have a team pop up. So I wanted to take a look here. Can we do that? Okay. So check this out for next year for USC. What is this? No, I don't want to see their non-conference schedule. Future opponents. Why are they doing this? They don't have USC schedule. Let me see. 2026. That's all I care about. Do they have it if I do it this way? Oh, now they do. Okay, so look at USC schedule. Now you're wondering why Lincoln Riley was thinking of leaving. So he's at Indiana, at Penn State, Ohio State at home, Oregon at home, Notre Dame at a city to be determined. And they also get Washington, Wisconsin, and one of those two teams could be better. Look at that schedule for USC next year. That's a monster schedule. You know, I'd really like to know, because Indiana plays such a pansy schedule every year, it seems. Let me see if they get a tough schedule, conference schedule, because they're not willing to play tough teams non-conference. So let's see. Oh, they're not going to do this now. Oh, here we go. Is that going to work? There it is. All right. So you see what I'm saying? So, North Texas. Well, it's too bad you didn't get him this year, because Mestamaker is not going to be on North Texas this next year. He's going to be following. There's no doubt he's leaving. He's going to follow his coach to Oklahoma State, and they'll have the money. So look at this really tough schedule by Indiana, North Texas, Howard, and Western Kentucky. Yeah, Indiana. Look at this. Minnesota, Northwestern. Now you get Ohio State at home, Purdue, you get USC at home, at Michigan, so that's good. At Nebraska, that could be tough. And at Washington, so that's good. So definitely tougher next year than this year's schedule. So I'm glad to see that. That's the really the other thing that's really fucked up about the scheduling with all these teams and these conferences is that you don't know if you're going to get from year to year. You have no idea if you're going to get this murderous schedule, because it's just it just lotterized this schedule, and you have no idea who you're getting each year. And sometimes you get a really, like USC, you get this really tough schedule. And other years you get, like, say, what Indiana had this year or Ohio State had this year. Yeah, I get a couple tough games. For the most part, we're so good, which they are talent-wise, that all we got to do is play a couple tough teams every year. We do that. We win like 50% of those, and we're in the playoffs. So, okay, enough of that. Where are we? Let's do that. Okay, so this week, Army and Navy and Boise State, that's the Saturday game. So, yeah, the Army-Navy game, Navy beat Army last year. They beat him as a dog. Maybe they blew him out. I really didn't think Navy was going to have a chance to beat him last year. Because remember, Army had that really excellent team last year. That was like the best Army team I've seen since I've been alive. Since I've remembered college football, but like pre-1970s, whatever. Yeah, there was some really, really good service academy teams, but you got to go back a long way. All right, so Army beat Kansas State this year on the road. That was a really big win for them. And Navy, though, they beat Memphis and South Florida. So those were some good wins. And let's see. Other than that, so it's really, you can't really look into that. So I tried to look into scheduling and who looked like they were better. And I just, the only thing that I really noticed was one thing, and that is that Navy has not beaten Army back-to-back years since they dominated. They went on that 14 winning streak run, and that was until 2015. So 2014, 2015 was the last time Navy has won consecutively against Army, and I think they'll do it on Saturday, just because of the fact that I said, look, I'm not seeing any sort of trends or any angles or anything like that says one thing or another. All I know is by the eye test, I see Navy. Navy's got a really good quarterback. They've got a really good receiver. They can run the ball. So this is a very talented offensive Navy team. Army, a big downgraded quarterback from last year. Same thing at running back. They can run as always, but they don't really have a blue chipper there. Same thing in receiver. So this is just, another well-coached Army team that is just okay. They're at the point now with Monken that this is pretty much the worst that you get at Army now, which is great for Army fans. But that's it. That's the kind of season Army's having. One of those, well, yeah, we're just going to a bowl, or we're bowl eligible, and we've won a nice game or two. But that's it. It's nothing like last year. And Army lost last year to Navy. So does that mean Army can pull off the upset this year? Absolutely. It's a rivalry situation. But, I'm not a mystic, so I don't know when the rivalry dog will pull off the win. I'm just saying Navy's the better team. I don't think there's any question about that. It's just a matter of whether or not they will prove it on Saturday. And then you've got the LA Bowl, Boise State versus Washington. And interesting that Washington crushed Boise week 1, the 2023 season, when Washington went to the championship game, 56-19. The previous time these two teams had played was in a bowl. They played, I don't know what bowl it was, but Washington destroyed Boise in that one too, 38-7. So you have to go back like 10 years when Boise beat Washington, but that was a Chris Peterson coached Boise team, and that was not a good Washington team, like a different era kind of. So recently, Washington, look, this is not a surprise because Washington, they're from a Power 4, conference. They're obviously got more talent overall. The interesting thing, and I think you need to keep an eye on this. Well, then again, it's Wednesday night, so probably not going to interfere with this by Saturday. But this is probably a good segue into what happened tonight with Sharon Moore with Michigan being fired. Jed Fish is going to be one of the potential candidates for the job. And I've heard already names thrown out there for the next job. Out of all the names that I've heard so far, I actually think Jed Fish is the most likely candidate. Now, I understand the board wanted the job a couple of years ago when Harbaugh was going to leave. But then Moore did what he did as an interim in a magical season, beating Ohio State. He had earned the right to stay on as head coach. But now, second chance, because look, seriously, if they did lose in their game to Georgia. Somehow they maintained a spot in the playoffs. What would have happened if they were not in the playoffs? I don't know. Would he be somewhere else? I don't know, because I can't imagine that. I mean, why would he want to go through this? He's had back-to-back 3-loss seasons. He should not be in the playoffs this year. Everybody knows that. He shouldn't be there. He had 3 losses last year and he wasn't in there. And they're better teams this year. Better bubble teams this year than last year. Last year's bubble team was South Carolina. That was the type of team they were measuring Alabama with last year. I know bowl teams didn't get in, but those are the bubble teams. This year you had Notre Dame, Texas, Vanderbilt, and BYU as bubble teams. And Alabama this year still found a way to get in. So we all know they didn't so the thing is I mean, you lose to Oklahoma in a couple of weeks. What he's going to be going through in the Alabama community is going to be nuts. And he wants to stay there. So that's kind of interesting. But I think the only thing I could say is that unless he knew that this job could be open, and I don't really think anybody did, because Matt Campbell, I think if kind of the inner circle of coaches knew what was going on for real at Michigan, if this could be realistic, I don't think Campbell would have signed Penn State. I mean, he wanted the Michigan job. So I can imagine what he's going through right now. He's like, you got to be kidding me. I do the Penn State deal, and now the Michigan job opens up, for crying out loud. So Matt Campbell, he would have been a really perfect fit. But I think because nobody did know or think this is realistic as far as possibility, yeah, I think DeBoer is going to stay. I just do. Because he is a logical choice. But because I think he's staying at Alabama, I'm going to go with Jedd Fisch, because I'm not even sure Jedd Fisch. Not that I really like the fact that Jedd Fisch, like if I'm a, he seems to be like another Kiffin, one of those coaches, that just bops around from program to program every several years. Now, hey, maybe when you're like, if you're Kiffin and you go to LSU, it's like, okay, well, I'd still be concerned if I'm an LSU fan, because I still think that at some point he'll want to get over to Alabama. So I just wouldn't feel safe even at LSU if I'm an LSU fan with Kiffin. But with Jedd Fisch, if Jedd Fisch were to get a Michigan job, then that's it for Jedd Fisch. As long as Michigan wants Jedd Fisch will stay at Michigan. That would be a job that Jedd Fisch would want for the rest of his life. So I really think that Jedd Fisch, that's why I have him as my most likely Michigan head coach candidate out of the group that they're talking about. I know they're also talking about Brady, the Buffalo coordinator. The only reason I'd be okay with that is just because it is a college job. I wouldn't want to hire Brady as an NFL head coach. I honestly don't think he's earned it yet. But in college football, that's different. He's got the resume with LSU. He has done good things at Buffalo, as far as, because when you look at LSU, you look at the Burrow and the passing attack they had with those awesome receivers. And then you've got Josh Allen. But that's the other thing. You got to go, well, wait a second. He was at Carolina, and I don't recall that really working out too well. How long was, let me see here. How long, where is he? Joe Brady coach. It's interesting. Everybody got Joe Brady. Look at this. Where is it? Oh, wait. Okay. Yeah, look at this. When he Googled Brady's name, look at here. Michigan. He's got no ties to Michigan. His name was already fourth on the board with Michigan. So, interesting picture. All right. So when he was with Carolina, it was 2 years here, 2021. But do you recall, what do they say here about his time at Carolina? Let's see. Here it is. Let's see. Okay, that was Matt Rule. Nothing. Yeah, that doesn't surprise me, because I don't remember anything about Brady at Carolina. So what's the point? Is that so again, you go from LSU, winning a national championship, everything's great. He gets the Carolina job from that, and this looks like a great hire for Carolina. Doesn't work out. Goes to Buffalo, and is behind the scenes as a quarterback coach. Gets the OC job, as we all remember, after they fired whoever. I remember, I can't remember his name now. But they moved on, and he gets the gig, and he does such a good job. And what he did was he turned everything around with the running game. And he was like, if we're going to win here, we're going to be a complete offense. We need balance. And he did a great job of that. So he proved at LSU that they could throw the ball, and he proved at Buffalo that they could play a balanced game. So what I meant, though, was that I don't think he really is ready yet for an NFL job. I'm not saying that he couldn't get one, because there's less qualified assistant coaches that are head coaches in the NFL right now. And he probably will get a head coaching job this year somewhere if he wants it. And it could be Buffalo. If Buffalo, maybe that's why he stayed an extra year. If Buffalo, let's say, I think they'll make the playoffs, but let's just say they make the playoffs, they don't catch the Patriots, and they lose the first round. It is possible that they get rid of McDermott and then Brady becomes head coach. I mean, that would be the logical move for Buffalo, especially this year, because you got to think, if you're Buffalo Bills, you got to be saying to yourself, well, he's not going to be around here much longer. Somebody's going to hire Brady. Are we willing to let him go because we trust that McDermott, no matter what happens this season, that he will be our guy for at least the next several seasons? And if that's the way Buffalo feels about it, then Brady will be gone. So what I'm getting back to is I think because of the success he had in college with LSU, that's huge. And he's also coming down a level. So you come down a level, and you don't have to be, you don't have to be a genius. You can, because in the NFL, man, in order to have success, you have to be a really good head coach. I mean, sustained success. You have to be a really good head coach. Just look at Johnson with the Bears, and quickly he's turned that thing around. But in college, if you can recruit well and you're a good coach like he is, you can do. I mean, he might even come down here and it takes a look at who they have a quarterback and it's like, hey, man, all right. Because that's the other thing with Brady. Again, didn't do anything at Carolina. Well, they didn't have anything there. What did he have at LSU? He had Joe Burrow. He had 3 tremendously gifted receivers. And what do you have at Buffalo? Josh Allen and James Cook. So that would, again, that's why I'm saying in the NFL, I don't know if he really should. I don't know if I would hire him, because that's what I'd be looking at. I'd be looking at, well, yeah, when you didn't have talent, nothing happened. But when you had talent, something happened. So now look, maybe a team in the NFL will hire him and they've got talent already. I don't know what team that would be, but could be Buffalo if they move on from McDermott. All right, enough of that. We are going to, like I said, I would have done the whole bowl thing on this show, but the reason I didn't is because I need the time, and then as much time and days as well, not just for prep, but because I want to find out, because we just saw what's going on with Mississippi. We just found out yesterday, I think it was, that they're letting like 4 more assistant coaches coach the playoff game for Mississippi. So I want to find out and go over all of that with you guys next week. I'm going to go over all of as far as the playoffs are concerned, especially, who's coaching and who's not. And the same thing in the bowl games, because that's going to be important too. So I just want a little bit more time to go over that. I don't know when that's going to be. So I will tell you this. Besides, it's going to be before the 19th, that day. So that means that in the Veterans Bowl, which is on the 16th, the Troy-Jacksonville State game, well, since that game is not at Jacksonville State, I'll take Troy in that one. In the Cure Bowl, Old Dominion and South Florida, yeah, this is a good game. I still think South Florida is better than Old Dominion, but Old Dominion is not a bad dog if you're looking for. We always got to look for good dogs in the bowls. There's a lot of dogs winning in bowls. And this is really good time of year to find dogs. So Old Dominion is a nice dog at 2-1. I will say that. And then the Louisiana-Delaware game, I definitely think Louisiana is the better team. They're a 3-point favorite. They're also from a better conference. That's important because the Conference USA, not good. Okay, not good. And speaking of that, you've got another Conference USA Sun Belt matchup, Missouri State, Arkansas State. Missouri State's a slight favorite. I do think Missouri State's a better team than Arkansas State. I will say that because Arkansas State, they were lucky to even be in the picture to potentially play in the championship game several weeks ago, just because there was no, they had a weaker division. That's all. So Missouri State, I really like the coach. I like the veteran quarterback they have, and I think that's a coach to keep an eye on. I'm gonna now. Unfortunately, I guess they lose this quarterback unless he has another year of eligibility, the kid Clark. So we'll see. I would like Missouri State in that game, but we'll start off with next week. We'll start off with the Myrtle Beach Bowl, December 19th, 11 a.m. Kennesaw State and Western Michigan. So I have the Bowl Mania, I think it's called. Let me see when my everybody's, when you have to get this in by. Let's see. Because they have 3. Can I send this over there? Okay. So there are 3 entries. I think that's for each. Show me the time frame. Entries. Okay. Oh, okay. So it locks at 12 o'clock. This locks at 8 o'clock. Oh, okay. So basically, yeah, I don't know why they do this, why they put this cricket celebration bowl in there. That's just dumb. I mean, give everybody a real chance. Like, I know why they're doing it. It's like another tiebreaker. But I'd rather, just do total points for another game or something. Do you have to do this? Because all most people are doing is just who's the favorite. I mean, I don't know what else you do. Okay. So, yeah. So you don't have to make these picks until the game and the date of the game. So that's good. So if anybody is doing these, then those are my picks. I'll do Louisiana. If I had to, yeah, right now I have South Florida. Yeah, I'm going to stick with that, obviously. I wish this wasn't a matchup. This is one of those matchups I always talk about that I would have loved to have had South Florida play a game against some other team that I have no interest in the entire season. And the same thing for Old Dominion. So I could have picked both of them in separate games instead, even though it's a really good matchup. I don't blame them for creating the matchup. It's not good for me personally. I don't like it when I have to decide on 2 teams that I like, but I do like South Florida better. All right. Yeah, Troy, definitely. And I took Washington. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, so I just wanted to check that out just to make sure, because I know some of you guys might be doing these contests, and I want to make sure that you don't have to make those picks until each game. And that's the way it looks to me. Let's talk NFL. I think it's time to talk some NFL, because now that's going to take up, once we do the bowl preview show. Actually, I will say this, one more thing before we get to NFL, because we are going to, after the bowl preview next week, everything that we're going to be doing from now on is going to be NFL centric. So I don't want the rankings. I want the bracket. Okay. So let's take a look at the bracket, and I'll give you my first impressions, whatever. Okay. I mean, can you give me the damn bracket? Let's do some stupid crap in the background. Let's get rid of that. Let's watch the bracket instead. Okay, it's not as big as whatever. All right, so yeah, look, I like dogs. Dogs are always fun to play, but James Madison, yeah, it's not going to happen. So you're going to get Oregon and Texas Tech. All right, so they're going to play in the quarterfinals, and it'll be in Miami. And I definitely will be taking Texas Tech. And then we have Alabama, Oklahoma. So look, honestly, neither of these teams should be in the playoffs. Um, look, Oklahoma deserves to be in more than Alabama. They beat them. So it's Oklahoma should Oklahoma realistically, Oklahoma, based on the way that these teams have played, Oklahoma should be under this stupid scenario. If you're including James Madison, they should be 10. That should be Oklahoma. And then it should be Miami 9 and Notre Dame 8. I mean, and I think Notre Dame should be a lot further off because if you've seen my rankings the past couple of months, I've had Notre Dame at like 4 the last month. So you know where I stand with Notre Dame. Okay. So I don't know. I mean, Alabama, Oklahoma, that's just going to be an ugly game to watch. I don't know where Alabama's confidence is going to come from, to tell you the truth. Oklahoma's the more confident team. They're both ugly, but I'll take Oklahoma. It's going to be hard to beat Alabama twice, though, in the same season. I will admit that. But I don't know. The other thing that you do have to keep in mind in some of these games, the bowl games as well, you do have to keep in mind everything that's going on around, because Alabama is going to try to use this to their advantage as far as motivation. People don't think we should be here, us against the world, that sort of thing. So that is going to come into play in some of these situations like this one. Look, I would take Oklahoma, but I'm doing that at 51-49%. That's it. I mean, if there's a game I have no interest in watching, it's that one. And it's sad because these are two storied college football programs. But I hopefully it'll be a good game, a close game, so they'll have some drama to be suspenseful with. Look, you've earned the number 1 seed, Indiana. This is what you want to see from the number 1 seed. You want to see, who do I get to play? Oh, good. I get to play the winner of this garbage game. So that's a big advantage for Indiana. So you can put Indiana in the semifinals. I've mentioned this about a month, 4 to 6 weeks ago. I don't remember when specifically, but remember going over Tulane and talking about how the one thing that holds Tulane back from being a team to sort of like Boise State in a way, to be recognized as a really good group of 5 team, is the fact that every time they come up against teams like Ole Miss in the SEC, they get beat up. I mean, heck, they went to They went to Mississippi State, was it? Who did they have? I think they had Mississippi State, or I know they had 2. I don't think it was Mississippi State this year, but I know they had, Ole Miss this year. And last year they had at Oklahoma, they lost by 15. And Ole Miss, they lost by 17. That was a home game in 2023. I don't know where I got Mississippi State from. Maybe it was Mississippi. So the problem with Tulane is every time they get an opportunity to play one of these really good programs, especially in the SEC, they haven't been able to get through. Now, they have been competitive. They did beat, say, Kansas State at home several years ago. So they've showed life. But in these matchups, I don't think they stand a chance. I would even though it's 17.5, I would even say, if I'm taking the game, I'd probably take Mississippi. But this is another situation to keep in mind. And the more every day that goes on, and I, like I said, I just heard that Mississippi was allowing 4 more coaches to coach them. The more that goes on, the more I'm starting to think about Ole Miss. And the reason I'm doing that, one of the reasons I'm doing that, is because of their number. So let's pop that up on the screen, because I haven't seen it lately to see if it's changed much. I'm talking about their future. So let's see. Where are we? Okay. So here's here are the futures. So let's move them over. Okay. All right. So there we are. 25-1. Wow. We get an SEC team at 25-1. Now, the only reason they are 25-1 is their head coach is not there. That's it. It's the only reason. And so you're giving me the value similar to Alabama and Miami. Two teams that, well, Alabama, we all know, shouldn't be there, and Miami had to get in there. So if you look at this now, and even Texas A&M, wow, look at Texas A&M. I already did. So Ole Miss, just speaking about them, you're getting 25-1. As good as they've been this year, this is Lane Kiffin's best team. They've lost one time. Matter of fact, they had the lead in the second half at Georgia and fell apart late. So then they get the rematch if they win. And that means where is it? Let me pop that back up. And that means they go and take on Georgia if they win. And they're going to win. Now, I will say this, though, all right? Because the money line is big. The money line is it 6-1, I think? So the money line, $6-1. Okay. I wouldn't mind, look, because I think one of two things are going to happen with Ole Miss. And that's why it's eerily being familiar with me, because I said the same thing about Ohio State last year, is that either they're going to lose that first game and they're going to come out flat and they just don't have it after losing to Michigan and it's over and done with, or they're going to get past that and they're going to go and have a realistic chance of winning the championship, going all the way. And that's the way I feel about Ole Miss. Because as important as a head coach is, no doubt about it, we saw what happened 2 years ago with Michigan. Remember, those were big games at the end of the season. That was Ohio State on the road. Was that on the road or at home when they beat Ohio State with him? I think that was at home. And they were still able to win those games without Harbaugh on the sidelines. Now, they did have Harbaugh around, and you know, he was able to, you know, do whatever he was allowed to do or not allowed to do, where the game plans and all that kind of stuff. And they will miss Kiffin. But when you're talking about a bargain, you're talking about value, you definitely get value at Ole Miss at 25-1. Talent-wise, this is why I've been saying this all year, and there were a lot of people who agree for the most part. And that's why people were saying, oh, Vanderbilt and BYU and Texas and who am I leaving out? Those teams on the outside that didn't get in had just as much right and were more than capable of winning a few games in the playoffs. Well, that's the same thing with Ole Miss, that they are more than capable of winning a few games. And matter of fact, if Kiffin was still coaching this team, Ole Miss would be considered just as capable of winning a national championship, just like any team. And they may say except Indiana, Ohio State. Now, that's another story that actually I think is very positive for anybody that wants to try to make some money off these playoffs. I've been saying this for weeks, and that is that you have got to be absolutely crazy to bet either Indiana or Ohio State to win the national championship with these odds. No freaking way. These odds are the type of odds that you get, like even last year or in years past, where you get these really small odds from the favorites to win the championship. And there is no way that anybody is going to convince me that this year's best teams in college football are on the same wavelength that we've even had last year or in years past. So, for instance, all you got to do is compare this year's Ohio State team to last year's Ohio State team. Who do you think wins? Come on now. It's not even, what are we talking here? So that's my point, is that these are deserving of being considered the best teams going into the playoffs based on their season. There's no doubt about it. They are deserving to have this designation. But now we have to get real with the fact that, well, hey, this isn't a Big Ten schedule. You guys you're not going to have a Big Ten schedule like you had this year in the playoffs. That's out now. Now you're going to have to win 3 really tough games. Now you're going to have to put it up for 3 straight weeks. And that, in my mind, puts them with a majority of these other teams. Any of these teams can beat Ohio. This isn't one of those things, too, where it's like, well, any team can beat any team in any given day. I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about that's like an underdog story. This ain't no underdog story. This is in real life. Oregon, Georgia, Texas Tech, Texas A&M, Ole Miss. If Alabama was playing better, like earlier in the year, if Miami has their best team, even Oklahoma, because of their defense. So any of these teams, I might even say, okay, well, do I really want to go with Alabama, Miami, or Oklahoma? I'm a little bit more Oklahoma because, I mean, realistically, they just don't have a high-powered enough offense. And winning on defense, doing it 4 consecutive weeks, games, and we all know what Alabama's psyche is like. So I'd say Miami, Ole Miss, Texas A&M, Texas Tech, Georgia, Oregon, all capable of beating Ohio State or Indiana any week, anytime, anywhere. And now, again, no home field advantage. So when these two teams, when they play, hey, neutral site, you don't get that edge either. And then you have to do it 3 straight times. So there's no way, unless you have already put the money on these two teams earlier in the season, or if you are a fan of the team, great. Do they have a chance? Absolutely. They can win the national championship. They have talent. They're just as good as all of these teams, but they are not that much better to be 2-1 or 3-1 on the money line. No way. I think if anything, it just proves it. Indiana just beat Ohio State. They just beat them, and they're still the second choice. On a neutral field, they beat them, but they're still, because there are major still question marks on whether an Indiana team, based on the fact that they played, really not a lot of competition over the last couple of years. They've had some nice wins at Oregon, be able to do that. They escaped, but did a good job to beat Iowa. Very lucky to beat Penn State. All right. Very lucky, but did it. And they really needed that was gut check time. And that was very impressive the way they were able to get that done. But now they're going to be expected to do it outside the conference. And teams specifically, if we're just talking about the SEC, Georgia, A&M, Ole Miss, these teams have been through it almost every week. They're coming up against teams that are capable of making it tough on them. That's not the case in the Big Ten this season, especially in the schedules that those two teams had. So, yes, while they are definitely capable of winning and deserve to be the favorites to win the national championship or to be the top 2 teams, I'm sorry, but there is no such value here at all when you can compare. Like, you could have taken the Dodgers to begin the season last year. What were they? even money, 2-1, something like that, some ridiculous number because of how good they were compared to the league or how much they bought a team. There is no way that Ohio State and Indiana should be the same odds that the Dodgers were to win the World Series last year. No way. So, but this is just the way that it is. This is the way that they set up the odds because these teams were undefeated the whole year. And all these other teams had, a little bit of they had the loss or losses. So where should they be? I think Ohio State and Indiana should be right around here where Georgia is. I think they should be around 4-1 would actually be my minimum. I would drop them at. So I want double of what they're giving us here. You're not going to give me double. I got to do this. Well, keep your money. Then I'd rather go with all the value plays elsewhere. So going back to the bracket and Ole Miss. So 6-1 on the money line. Look, if you think Ole Miss is going to just completely fall apart, the coach is gone, there's been too much of a distraction, we're heavy favorites, we're supposed to win, and then they go in, hey, we crushed this team earlier in the season. It's the same team we crushed. What was that score? Earlier, they just crushed them. Matter of fact, I think I have total yards on that too. What do I have on that? Ole Miss beat Tulane earlier this year, and they beat them by a score of 45-10, and they outgained them by nearly 300 yards. So it was no mistake, coincidence, nothing. Chambliss not only ran for over 300 yards, but he rushed for over 100 yards in the game, and they annihilated Tulane. Now, yes, it was at Ole Miss, but that was a 30 plus point win. So, hey, I'll give you a touchdown. Get 2 touchdowns. It doesn't matter. Again, the only thing stopping Ole Miss from beating Tulane is just if their psyche and all that is out the window. Okay, so still not a bad idea if you want to throw a couple of bucks on Tulane on the money line, especially. And look, I'll do it only because I'm going to take Ole Miss to win the national championship at odds of 25-1. So Ole Miss, let's say they get by Tulane. Now they're going to take on Georgia, so they get a rematch. And I think look, for the fans, it sucks because I got to see I got to see an SEC rematch with Alabama, Oklahoma, and now I got to see another rematch with Ole Miss and Georgia. I mean, what is that doing? That's just can we play someone outside the SEC so we could see exactly how good the SEC is compared to other conferences? That's the whole idea of this, isn't it? So now it's Ole Miss and Georgia. Not good for the fans, but I see no reason that this is good for Ole Miss because they're going to be the dog, clearly. And Georgia already beat them. And it's big, mighty Kirby Smart in Georgia after they just demolish Alabama in the SEC championship game, going up against Ole Miss without Lane Kiffin. And they know, Ole Miss knows, based on the game that they played earlier this year, we can beat these guys. They just have to now go and do it. And I think when you take a look at where they came from, I think it's one of those situations where as a dog, you say, look, we weren't the same team when we played them because they weren't. It's the whole idea of going back to Notre Dame, Miami. And we got better as the year went on. And now we're a much better complete team at the end of the season. We know we could hang this team. It's going to be a neutral site now. We had to go there. So, and that's huge. Okay. Especially for a team like Ole Miss, who doesn't usually win these matchups with Georgia in these big moments. So, hey, nothing to lose. Nobody picking us. And that's bigger when you're Ole Miss against Georgia than, say, Tulane against Ole Miss. That matters more in those situations, or at least you have a much better chance. So, and then you have Miami, Texas A&M. And you know what? I'm telling you, I think the winner of this game I think they might beat Ohio State. I was completely look. There were some people who just went, who gushed all over the place for Mendoza. And Mendoza solidified his Heisman with the win in the Big Ten championship game, and look at his stats, and look at what he did with the stats, and he had to make plays and he made them, and yeah, okay. So look, what Mendoza did was fine. He played the way a Heisman contender is supposed to play. He had a decent, solid game. The kid did not throw for 350 yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks. Okay, the kid did not look special. The kid just did what he had to do against a good defensive team. But what you also saw in Mendoza was, how did he look at certain parts of the game when that Ohio State defense got to him? He looked rattled. And what you have to think about when you're scouting these types of players like this is, because most of them end up in the NFL with teams that aren't good. So what's going to happen in that situation? They're going to wind up being in a situation where they go back to pass, and they're going to have a lot of stuff happening. And they're going to get pressure, and they're going to have to make big plays under pressure. And they're going to have to deal with the fact that they're not the better team. See, when he's been playing football for this season for Indiana, for the most part, every time he goes out there, they're the better team. The only time that wasn't the case was Oregon, in a game that he did not light up. It was similar to the result that he had in the championship game. He had a good game. He made a couple of big plays when he had to make, and that was it. That is insane. That about someone is so different than trying to say Heisman or number 1 draft pick. No, when you're a Heisman winner or number 1 draft pick, it has to be, or it should be, somebody that is special. And I don't see a special player. I just don't. I see a good player, a good young player that probably could use another year in college, which he won't get. Look, this is a kid that played for California last year. Did anybody know who he was before this year? No. Most college football fans, just the average ones, had no idea who this guy was, because he played on a team that wasn't as good and talented that Indiana is. So he wasn't able to play as good as he's playing now because he has the talent around him. He won't have that talent in the NFL when he first comes. So the important thing is, does he have the traits to handle that well, to continue to develop under all of that bad shit happening around him? And I think he will. I think he'll be a fine quarterback in the NFL. I really do. I have no problem with Mendoza as an NFL quarterback, as a reliable, solid NFL quarterbacking career. Is that what you want with the first pick in the draft? That depends on how desperate you are for a quarterback. Heck, he might end up with my team. So again, if you get him as a fan, you should be happy. All I'm saying is that, because he's been compared to Jared Goff a lot, and I forget the other player, but one of the players I've been hearing is Jared Goff. Okay. If you're a losing organization like the Detroit Lions, and you can get Jared Goff, and you've seen what he's been able to do there, hey, I love it. Thank you. We're winning. We don't ever win here. This is awesome. Same thing if Mendoza would go to the Jets. Hey, we're winning now. Great. I love it. But when we're really just analyzing how special he is and what he can do to elevate his team to be special in college, in these playoffs, as well as in the NFL. First of all, in the NFL, I've given my opinion. I think that's what he's going to do. I think a lot of people will have the same. I think most opinions will be my opinion on Mendoza in the NFL. But I don't see that type of player where I'm going to say, oh, man, no. I mean, wow. Yeah, Mendoza, doesn't matter who he plays. Yeah, Indiana's going to win because of Mendoza. I don't see that. I need to see it. Maybe it'll happen. But I'm not seeing it yet, so I think they're vulnerable. Look, I have them getting past Alabama, Oklahoma, but Julian Sayin completely looked overmatched. Now, he's a little younger. He's got a whole another year next year to get better. But you've got now. I think some of the criticism at Ohio State should definitely be directed at the OC, because that game plan and that play calling was atrocious. And see, unlike Ohio State staff last year, you had two really dynamic coordinators. And as good as Ryan Day is, I'm sorry, but you just can't replace guys like that. And just, okay, we're going to be that team again next year, especially the players that they lost, which is, again, why I know the whole country lost players and stuff, which is why Ohio State is back where they were last year. But the difference is, again, is you got to go through this every week now. And that's where the playing field gets shrunken. And Ohio State is just like every other playoff team, or most likely every other playoff team. And Julian Sayin did not do anything in that Big Ten championship game that made me go, oh, wow, I really got to worry about that. So Mendoza definitely looked better than Sayin, no question about it. But when you've got two first-round top 10 caliber wide receivers, and that's what I don't care how good Indiana's defense is, you can't find a way to put up big yardage with those two guys out there. Come on now, stop. So he was off. He did not play well. The offensive coordinator sucked. And I do not look at this in any way, shape, or form at the way Ohio State was able to rebound last year. That was a completely different team, a championship team, great players all over the place. That's just not the case this year. They've got good players all over the place. They've got some real things. They have a few top-notch guys that will be top 10 or top 20 picks this year, but the same type of players that if they were in last year's draft would be 10, 15, 20 picks behind those guys. So good players, some very good players, but special players, no. That was last year. I don't see that this year. I do like some of the guys, though. I definitely do. And we'll talk more about that in the coming weeks, because we're going to talk a lot about those players and players all over the country and what's going on there. Okay, so point is, Miami, Texas A&M definitely are going to be able to hang with Ohio State. And I think Texas A&M has a much better chance because I don't trust Miami. But if Miami beats Texas A&M, then that means that they're ready to step up. And then I can see them pulling things out with Ohio State. But I feel a lot better with Texas A&M. And that's the direction I'm going to go. And so that's why if we go back here, that's why I'm taking Texas A&M as well. So instead of it just being mainly Notre Dame at 12-1 or whatever I got them originally, now it's going to be, I'm going to take these two teams as nice long shots, A&M and Ole Miss, and Texas Tech. That's the team that I'm going to be going with, and seeing if we can get something going there. And we'll go over more of this next week. But like I said, I have Texas Tech over Oregon. Oh, I could probably look over here and probably see more. And then it would be Texas Tech and Indiana. And then I'm going to go with, obviously, I'm taking Texas Tech over Indiana. And then in this situation, look, I do want to, I might change my mind depending on the Ole Miss Tulane game with Ole Miss and Georgia, because I like Georgia the way they're playing. I do. Their defense has really stepped it up. They have a really solid quarterback, good college quarterback. And thing with Georgia is those odds, being 5-1, that's pretty low. So that bothers me. But I do think that they are a championship caliber team this season. But I think Ole Miss I think they're going to give him a game. And, more likely happen. Georgia will pull it out late, that sort of thing. But I think Ole Miss, I think it's worth the risk. And then again, you get the three teams: Texas Tech, A&M, and Ole Miss. The one I believe in the most is A&M, and as far as the two long shots. But when it all comes down to it, I might actually put Texas A&M against Texas Tech in the championship game. I might do that because honestly, I think it's wide open now that Notre Dame's out of it. There's, I just do. And if I was picking one of these two Big Ten teams, I'm definitely taking Indiana over Ohio State. So that would be Indiana and Texas Tech. I think that's what we're going to see. And then if Texas Tech loses to Indiana, then we would get, we would get Ohio State, Georgia in the semis. If the seeds hold up, if that happened, I would go with Georgia, and they would be my they would be the other team that I would be looking at to knock off Indiana if it had to go to that in the championship game. But what I'm really going to be interested in more than anything regarding Indiana is this matchup here. Is I want to see what happens here. That's going to determine an awful lot in my mind, because it'll be the first time that they're going to play out of the conference this season against a quality team. It's not one of the top teams, but it's a quality matchup. And that's what I'm going to be. And how do they handle that? Is it a 16-13 win? Is it Mendoza, late drive, kick the field goal, win at the buzzer win? Or does Indiana, when it's all said and done, they win 27-10, they dominate the game? Those differences, I think, will be humongous in how I think the rest of the playoffs will go for them. So whichever way it goes could dictate it. Because if they win easy and they dominate, then, in my mind, and them being the better of the Big Ten teams, then maybe they get it done. But there's just something about this year's Big Ten and Indiana with not losing yet. And even in that championship game, I mean, I'm sorry, but both the SEC championship game and the Big Ten championship game were they really weren't well played. I mean, I don't care what anybody says. You can have really good defensive teams and really good, but really, if I wanted to watch, if I wanted to go down that road, then it would be Oklahoma. I would have Oklahoma against whatever. I mean, who else? Is there anyone else in these playoffs that's more of just a defensive team? I don't think so. But let's say if Oklahoma played Oklahoma, that's like what it felt like to me in the SEC championship game and the Big Ten championship game. It's like, okay, well, it's okay, but it's Oklahoma then. And that's kind of the way I feel about Indiana, Ohio State. It's like there was nothing in that Big Ten championship game that I just felt like, oh, yeah, these are definitely the two best teams in college football, man. Can't you see it? No, I can't. Sorry. So that's why I just don't have I can't pinpoint when it's going to happen. Obviously, if I did, I'd be rich. But I just don't have a good feeling for Ohio State or Indiana. And I just think when it's all said and done, if they're able to win, then I am, and again, I think they're going to do it where they're going to, especially by the semis and the championship, they're just going to win close games and duke it out. And they happen to be the most mentally toughest team in college football this year and hand it to Indiana and they're champs. But outside of that, I don't see anything else. I just don't. So, and if I'm an Indiana fan, I could care less. I just am so stoked to be here that I could absolutely care less about how I get it done, style points, all that stuff. Could not care. So, because I could only dream as a fan of being in a situation, which I've done, which is actually why I still feel confident and have hope that it could also be done at Rutgers, because I know it can. If it could be done at Indiana, it could be done just about anywhere now in college football. It all comes down to coaching and money. Recruiting is important too. But at Indiana, it hasn't been recruiting. All it's been at Indiana, besides bringing in Signetti, is money. It's the transfer portal. That's it. And if they can do it, so can any other team, mostly. All right, let's talk NFL. I just wanted to make sure to go over some of that because I know some of you guys are looking ahead, and but I'll finalize everything for sure next week. Because, like I said, a lot of this is also going to just depend on. I want more information on the coaching situation, and who knows, injuries could pop up, other stuff. All right, NFL. Let's run through the NFL here, and Atlanta and Tampa Bay on Thursday, so that's tomorrow. The line is up to 4.5 here. Rematch week 1. Tampa beat Atlanta as a 1-point road favorite. And Tampa Bay is really just, wow, 1-4 straight up, 0-5 against the spread since the bye. But they're getting Mike Evans back. They're actually I can't even believe that Evans and McMillan are coming back. I mean, it's like when Evans went out, I just remember everybody talking about, well, that's it. He's done. With that injury, he's done. We'll see him next year. And then McMillan, it was like that neck injury looked so bad that it was like, well, it's a neck. Why would he come back this year? It's like he needs at least to have a whole offseason, right? Now, maybe it's health and technology nowadays, because we just get amazed every year with how these players are able to adapt and respond and regenerate their body so quickly, health-wise. And it's great. It's great to see. And so now Tampa Bay, it looks like they're going to go into this game. It is possible they're going to go into this game with, now I don't know if Bredesen's playing, because I know he got banged up. I haven't checked that out. But let's say Bredesen plays. I mean, Wirfs looks like he's going to play. Evans, McMillan, Godwin's back. Irving's back. I don't know about Reddick. I think he's back. Meaning, like, everybody basically that can come back, except for Kalijah Cansey. Now, I haven't heard an update on him in a week or two, but there is even talk that he could come back by the playoffs. So that's great, but the Bucs have got to start playing better. They're just playing so well. They're not playing terribly, but it's like they're playing like a 500 team would play. You know, where they're looking okay at parts of the game, other parts they looked overmatched. That's just the way they played, and they're just losing a lot more games as well. Whereas the beginning of the season, even though they were winning a lot of close games, they were winning close games early. Now they're losing them. But in the beginning of the season, when they were doing it with style points. I mean, they looked the part. Now it's just like they don't look the part at all. So, and the funny thing is like I said, is that now almost everybody that could be healthy is, at least we might see on Thursday. But it'll take a little while for everybody to get going again. I still firmly believe they're going to win the battle with Carolina, but they have to get the winning going again, and also they've got to, like, if they beat Atlanta, they can't just win the game and it's a struggle and they win 27-24. No, they got to beat Atlanta 27-7. Now, that's the type of win they need. But if you look at this, Atlanta, 12-1 ATS last 13 as division dogs when they take on an opponent off a straight-up loss. 12-1. And then Tampa Bay, how about this? On Thursday Night Football, they've dropped 7 straight spreads on Thursday Night Football. They're also 1-5 ATS at home this year. Next up, Buffalo, New England. This line just changed. It was 1-5 and a half. This went 3 points in a couple hours. It was 1.5 New England. It's now 1.5 Buffalo. I don't know what happened, but all of a sudden the Bills are the slight favorite. It's too bad too because they're 2-0 as a dog this year, straight up. New England, meanwhile, they've won the 10 straight. Now maybe there's maybe there's news about like a couple, because I know obviously the Patriots have some banged up players. Look, there's a couple things we're going to find out for the New England this week. One, how do they respond to having a few players, key players, not play? Depth. How do they respond with depth? Two, how do they respond to now having to step up and play better teams? Unfortunately, for fans outside of New England, we may not find out really until the playoffs because they've already beaten Buffalo, as we know, and that was a huge win, winning on the road. They have won 10 straight overall, okay? But get this, they've only played one winning team in the last 8. Now, we knew in the beginning of the season, they had the easiest, San Francisco, New England had the easiest schedules in the NFL. Lo and behold, New England and San Francisco have a lot of winning this year. Check this out too. One winning opponent in the last 8. Do you know what that team was? Slumping Tampa Bay. So I mean, if you look at it, let's see. Only 2 and 3 ATS last 5. That's like a sign that, maybe they're going in the wrong direction, but they're still winning. And their last 3 games of the season, it's not getting any tougher. 3 losing teams: Baltimore, Miami, and the Jets. Now, Miami and Baltimore are on the verge of being a 500 team, but still no winning teams right there. And they have only, 4 wins this year versus winning teams. They got the win over Buffalo, which is easily their best win. They beat Pittsburgh. Did they beat Pittsburgh? Did they beat Pittsburgh? I don't know why I'm thinking that they didn't. Oh, I think it's because I had another because I was looking at Pittsburgh and the Steelers. The Steelers did beat New England in New England. And so that means, let me just double check. Then that means that they've only beaten 3 winning teams this year. So let me double check that with the Patriots here. Okay. So New England has beaten just winning teams. They've beaten Carolina, got that. Buffalo got that. Tampa Bay got that. And that's it. So it's only 3 teams. So let me get that out. 3 teams. Even worse. So the Patriots have only beaten 3 winning teams. And Tampa Bay, Carolina are only 7-6. So really, if you think about it, they only have 1 big win this year. That's it. But sort of like what I was saying with Indiana. If you're a New England fan, it's like, I don't give a shit. It's just like I would say if this happened to the Jets next year, if they got an easy schedule and found some sort of halfway decent quarterback like Tanner McKee from Philadelphia, and then he went on this amazing run, and they were going to go to the playoffs, and somebody said, yeah, but the Jets haven't beaten anybody. Look at their schedule. My retort would be, I don't give a shit. All right, next up. The matchup with Buffalo. This is definitely something that New England owns. 3-2 straight up, 5-0 against the spread. Their last 5 meetings with the Bills, including the win earlier this year. Keep in mind, Buffalo did outgain New England in that matchup. And Buffalo's got a pretty easy end of the season run after this with the Browns and the Jets part of their schedule. Next up. Oh, and I'm going to take the Bills. I should say that. I'm not touching this game, but I'm going to take the Bills because I think it's going to be very hard for the Patriots to sweep Buffalo. I don't have to give up many points, if any. Actually, I don't have to give up any if I don't want to. And I don't know what that'll be, 125 or something. What is it? What does it say here? 118, even better. And also, look, they've won 10 straight games. They're going to have to lose sometime. Cleveland and Chicago. So this is 7.5, and I'm taking Chicago in this one. So the hype for Mr. Sanders is, or whatever you want to call it, is just getting ridiculous. It's probably all I have to do, right? Okay. So take a look. Let me see here. Yeah, I should have done that. There it is. Okay. So take a look at these games here. Okay. The Raven game, he didn't start that game, did he? Is that the game he came in relief, I think? All right. I won't even use that one. Okay, so here's his 3 starts. So, okay. All right. So, if you look at these starts, this is the one everybody's gushing about because it just happened. And he threw for 364 yards. And he had 3 touchdown passes. But the thing is, a couple things. First of all, this matters. Okay? And there is nothing in Shedeur Sanders' game that leads me to believe that this is going to dramatically get better. Like, this is going to be his low point. And that's a problem. Because obviously, look, this isn't the 1980s. You can't have a 54.8 completion percentage on a weekly basis and succeed. So this, even though he had this. And we saw what happened at the end of the game. And then the other thing, he's had 3 starts, and 2 of them have been against 2 of the worst teams in the NFL. Okay, so let's please keep this in perspective. I would want to see him. It's not that the Bears have a great defense, because they don't. But the one thing the Bears do, and that's pick off passes. I think they lead the NFL with like close to 20 interceptions. And that's a bad sign for Sanders. So what I think you're going to see is I think the Bears will do what they've done all season. They'll take advantage of Sanders, pick off, and not just pick him off, but I think they'll pick off at least one pass that'll be really important, like maybe in their own zone, that sort of thing. And look, the Bears are fighting for the playoffs. They've dropped to 7th after 1 loss in the NFC. Every game matters. They're playing playoff football. Even though they lost last week, that was a physical game. That was a tough game. Look, they were not the better team. They lost, but they hung in there. They just gave it their all, and they were just beaten by a better team, a more talented team. Well, the Browns are not more talented. And the Bears, as long as the Bears just keep playing the way the Bears have played, they just play the way they played last week, they're going to clobber the Browns, at least on that side of the ball. They're going to be physically too much for the Browns. Browns lost another offensive lineman. I think it was their center went out for the year. That also spells bad news for Sanders, that he's going to have to, because the Bears will definitely pressure him. And then it's going to be up to Cleveland. That's it. It's going to be up to as usual, for the most part, even though last week it was the offense that came through for Sanders and the Browns. But again, normally it's the defense for the Browns. Can they force Caleb Williams into some bad decisions, things of that nature? We'll see. The later in the season it goes, for Caleb Williams especially, the more the pressure is going to ramp up, especially playing on a winning team in a big market. We'll see how he handles that. But in this particular situation, I think he'll handle it pretty well. I think they're going to rebound from the loss pretty well and take care of business. They're 8-2-1 against the spread in the last 11. They're also 4-0, straight up 3-1 against the spread as a favorite this year. The only time they got beat on the number was a 4-point win against the Giants as a 5-point favorite. Cleveland, meanwhile, 1-5 straight up ATS on the road this year. Their only win was against pitiful Las Vegas. And overall, in their last 13 as a road dog, they are just 3-10. So I'm taking the Bears in that one against, what the hell was that? Against, there you go. Against Cleveland. All right, next up. Jets and Jags, and this one is now 13.5, up from 12. Actually, a point. No, just a point. It was 12.5. Look, Brady Cook is probably going to get the start for the Jets, so the Jags are definitely the play here. The only thing that I'd be concerned with is that the Jets, if you look at it, 3-3 straight up, 5-1 against the spread in their last 6, 5-1 against the spread as a road dog. And they are, even though the results weren't there last week, they're still playing and fighting hard for Aaron Glenn. The thing is, the other thing that would worry me if I'm taking Jacksonville is that would be a second straight bad loss for the Jets. Could be a bad loss if you wind up losing by more than 14. Could also just be a 14-point loss. And the Jets were down 7 in the fourth quarter, and Jacksonville scored, and it's 14, and it could happen too. But the whole Brady Cook thing, with him starting, I think the Jets are in a lot of trouble on offense. Jacksonville, meanwhile, 4-0 straight up and against the spread their last 4 by a 123-52 margin. 2-0 straight up and against the spread as a home favorite. And look, even though there are some danger signs, if you want to go against the Jets here, you have to take Jacksonville in this spot. Even though it's a big number, you have to take Jacksonville because with a rookie late round pick at quarterback on the road in his first start, more than likely, keep in mind, it's still possible we see another quarterback. And look, if we see another quarterback, this line probably drops 3 points, I would guess. So, you got to keep that in mind. But it's looking like if you're the Jets, why would you not play Brady Cook? First of all, you get to see how he plays. He's a rookie. You played a lot of rookies this year. Let's just play another one. Let's see if we've got something here, not as a starter, but somebody that could contribute for us, maybe in the coming years as a backup. And hey, if we lose because we have a rookie quarterback, well, then we lost. And we know what that does for draft position. Baltimore and Cincinnati. And look, I don't know if Cincinnati's got a chance now. I think the only chance they have realistically, of course, they've got to win every game, is probably going to be Pittsburgh losing to Miami on Monday night. I think that's it. I think that's the only realistic chance that Cincinnati has. That's what they're going to need. Because when you take a look at Pittsburgh's schedule, where is it? Where do I have Pittsburgh? When you take a look at Pittsburgh's schedule, oh, that's right, they're on Monday. They've got Detroit next week. So if you're Cincinnati, that's great. So let's see, Cincinnati is three games out. So let's say Pittsburgh loses to Miami. And then they go to Detroit next week and lose, which they probably will. Now, all of a sudden, you go from being 3 games back to being 1 game back in 2 weeks. Okay, but you have 2 games left at Cleveland and versus Baltimore. And those will be 2 tough games because even good teams have gone to Cleveland this year and they've had tough. They beat the Packers. So Cleveland can give a rival like Pittsburgh problems at home. And Cincinnati, their schedule, Miami, Arizona, Cleveland. So they get the same Miami as Pittsburgh gets. They do have to go to Miami. But hey, it's better than playing Buffalo again. You saw what happened. But that's the thing. That's got to be as bad and / unlucky as I've ever seen Joe Burrow and what happened in that game against Buffalo. Those interceptions, that's not Joe Burrow. That does not happen. But you had the weather conditions and a little luck. And it just happened at the worst time for the Bengals. Check this out, though. The Bengals are 13-5 against the spread when they take on division opponents coming off a loss at home. 13-5 ATS. Meanwhile, Baltimore 0-4 against the spread in the last 4 games, just 2-2 straight up. Now, just to know what you're dealing with Baltimore, and the reason why they're probably not going to make the playoffs is because they are 1-6 straight up and against the spread versus winning teams. Meanwhile, and they got 2 winning teams coming up. Matter of fact, no, excuse me, 3 straight winning teams coming up after this so far because Pittsburgh's in there. The Patriots and the Packers are the next 2 weeks for Baltimore because Baltimore's feasting on losing teams, 5-1 versus losing teams. I know it's hard to sweep your division opponent, but I think that's exactly what's going to happen with the Bengals beating the Ravens on Sunday. This line is up to 9.5. Houston, and they are just red hot. They've won 5 straight, covered 4 to 5. And I tell you what, this is my pick to win the division, including Jacksonville, with them being as hot as they are. I just think you look at Houston right now, and what impresses me the most about Houston this year, and I'll say this too. When I look at the AFC, and it looks like Kansas City's not going to make it, and we're still not even sure about what's going on with Buffalo, and Baltimore looks like they're not going to make it unless they win the North somehow, which could happen. Because if it could happen for Cincinnati, it could definitely happen for Baltimore. They're 2 games up. But the point is those 3 powerful teams, Baltimore, Buffalo, Kansas City, either are not going to make the playoffs or are clearly vulnerable this year. That means these other teams that are in there, New England, Denver, Chargers, Houston, they don't have to worry about those teams, which is major. And they'll be going up potentially against teams not used to being in this position. But you know what Houston, what I like about Houston is the fact that they have been in this position. They have been a playoff team. They have won this division, and they are playoff tested. And they are also 2025 regular season tested. They have, I haven't looked it up yet. Maybe I'll try to do that before the shows in the next couple of days, but they have to have one of the toughest schedules in the NFL. Okay. They have, let's see. Okay. Yeah. If you just look outside the division, that's really where a lot of these schedules are how they're ranked. But for the most part, but if you look outside the division, the only non-division opponent that Houston's played this year with a losing record right now is Baltimore at 6-7. That's how tough Houston's schedule has been this year. And they've still found a way to get this win streak, and they're 8-5. They've got maybe the best defense in football. And so, yeah, I know it's a lot of points, but remember, keep this in mind with Arizona. This is not the same Arizona team from earlier in the season. Okay. This recent Arizona team is 1-4 straight up, 1-4 against the spread in their last 5 with 3 losses of 19 or more points. So yes, I can see Houston, especially any of these like types of deals, when you have one team going one way and another team going the other way, when you've got that confident team going, if you can get off to a nice early start and just put the other team in that, oh no, it's over. In the first quarter, it's over. So in other words, if Houston can just go to a nice first quarter start, yeah, I see a potential blowout here. Next up, Las Vegas and Philly. So let's go ahead and give out our upset of the week. And this is it. So we're taking Las Vegas. The odds have dropped now to plus 490. They were 575 earlier. The odds were 11. So they're still the same. The number is still the same. But for me, a couple things. First of all, Kenny Pickett gets to go up against a team who didn't want him, the Eagles. So that's good. He's starting. I think you get a little bit of a backup bump here, a little bit, because he did play last week. And we all see the Eagles. What's going on there? They have lost 3 straight. They are falling apart. It wasn't long ago that we were saying that this was entirely possible. We saw what happened earlier in the year. The stats told us that this could happen, and it's happening. So now you might say, oh, yeah, but now you're playing a bad team. Well, when teams fall apart, they don't fall apart by losing to good teams only. They lose to anybody, and they find ways to lose. And look at the schedule. Philadelphia in their next 4 games, their last 4 games, 2 with Washington and the Raiders. So realistically, the Eagles should go 3-1 and then less 4, and they'll be in the playoffs. They'll win the division. I don't know. I don't know. I think this game has potential upset. And that's why, now look, I wouldn't feel this way with Geno Smith, but it's the timing of Pickett. It's given me some thought there. Check this out too. If you just want to take the number, I think do that. The Eagles have dropped 6 straight games when they have to give up double digits in points. 0-8 in their last 8 versus a team with a 250 or less win percentage. That is not a division opponent. So basically, if you're a bad team, a bad non-division team, the Eagles have dropped 8 straight of those covers as well. Okay, next up, Chargers and Chiefs. And wow, I don't know why this line has gone up to 5.5, unless something happened in the last hour or two with an injury. But I have no idea why this line would go up. Just to look at how the Chiefs are playing. I mean, they just continue to find ways to lose. They're 1-4 straight up, 0-5 against the spread in the last 5. The only win was the overtime comeback win against the Colts. Let's see. And the Chargers, meanwhile, have won 5 out of 6. They've won both of their games this year as dogs, including the Week 1 win over the Chiefs. And yeah, I mean, I don't understand. I'll find out if there's any news about injuries, but yeah, I think the Chargers are a really good play here. You're getting 2-1 on the money line. And just like the Eagles, the Chiefs have got a really easy end of the season. After this game, 2 of their next 3 are against 2 of the worst teams in the NFL, Tennessee and Las Vegas. The other game is Denver, and you get them at home. And you've already lost to Denver, so you get a chance to split. So if this was last year's Chiefs team, we'd be like, oh, yeah, they'll figure it out. Look at the schedule. They'll win 4 straight. They'll be fine. But I just, when you have these 2 Super Bowl teams going, what are they, combined 1-7 in the last 8 games combined. When you have that, I don't know why you just go, oh, yeah, just to keep taking those 2 teams. No, I'm not doing it. And I don't care about the temperature. Look, is it going to be a problem? Sure, should be a problem. Definitely. It'd be a problem for a lot of these warm weather teams, but not enough for me. Houston, dome team, cold, night game last week, didn't matter. Don't care about this game. Okay, Carolina and New Orleans. And in this one, this is actually going to be my top play of the week. Yes, I'm taking Carolina as my top play. Even though they have alternated wins and losses in their last 7, meaning after the win against the Rams, this would be a loss. But there was a bye, so I'll take that as interrupts that run they're on, and then I can regroup and take on a team that they just lost to. And that's the Saints. Now, the interesting thing is that trend-wise, this is a game that I would advise nobody to take. But as I was going through all the games, and I wasn't really paying too much to the trends, because honestly, I didn't find that one game that just stood out to me with the trends. So I was going, when that happens, I just look back and I just go, okay, let's go through these games again. And who do I think is the best matchup? I mean, best likely winner. And that's Carolina. They've already lost to the Saints. So a couple of things have to happen here. Not only do they have to, would they be getting swept, basically 2.5 swept by the Saints? How embarrassing would that be? But the Saints would win 2 straight games. They've only won 3 games all year. So that's why I think this is, and Carolina coming off the bye as well. But there are two trends that say do not take Carolina and do not take New Orleans. Carolina is 1-18 against the spread in their last 19 as a favorite when they take on a conference opponent with a win percentage of less than 400. They're already 0-1 this year, and that happened in the Saint game. But the Saints are 0-4 straight up and against the spread as a home dog this year, and 6-15-1 in their last 22 as a home dog. So that's why normally, I mean, it would be like completely stay away from that game. But I just think Carolina is going to beat the Saints because they're better than the Saints and their division opponent. You can't lose to the Saints twice. Can't do it. Okay. But if you want to take the money line at minus 142, absolutely. That's the way you go. Colts in Seattle. Can you believe this? Would anybody have believed just a couple of weeks ago that we'd see this line? But that's exactly what we're getting here. See, I'd be a little bit worried about this line, though, even if Phillip Rivers plays, because Seattle is playing the LA Rams on Thursday Night Football. So in just a few days after this game, Seattle will be playing their biggest game of the year. And there has to be a little bit, hey, we're 14-point favorites basically against this team with either a rookie, a quarterback, or a 46-year-old, a quarterback off the street. So we're going to win that game. So, and look at what's coming up. That has to be a little bit of a distraction. The question is it enough? Because the quarterback situation for the Colts might be that bad that it just becomes like a 27-0 win, and we can sleepwalk our way to the victory. And that could definitely happen. I mean, I'm not taking the game, but the reason I'm staying away from the Colts is just because I'm staying away from that next game for Seattle that could be a distraction. But just like Arizona, keep this in mind, early in the season, yes, Arizona was covering in close games, but that's changed, like I said. Same thing with Seattle, early in the season, and last year, not a good home team. That's changed. The Seahawks have now won 3 straight up ATS at home. All as a favorite. Okay, next up. Game that does not really matter because this will be an easy win for San Francisco. You would think. Same situation. I mean, you've got a team coming off a win, so Tennessee's not going to win 2 straight. San Francisco off a bye. The question is just about how many points. It is a lot of points, so that's why I would just pass on this one. Packers in Denver. So how about this number? I mean, I'm surprised here that Denver is the dog, and they're not a 1-point dog. They're almost a 3-point home dog. And look, there are some people who do believe that, based just on the way it looks, that the NFC is better than the AFC. And I look at it the way I do with the SEC and Big Ten in college football. Yes, top to bottom, the NFC is better than the AFC. But when we're matching the best teams, I don't see a big difference. And I definitely don't see a big difference with these two teams. Because just because the Packers have gone on this nice little run lately, let's keep this in mind. 3 of their last 4 on this 4-game winning streak, their last 3 wins were all in the division against all 3 division opponents. Okay. On top of that, this is still a team that when you watch them play the Packers, that there's still some vulnerabilities there. But there are some things that you're starting to like. Like now that Christian Watson is back and healthy, that's what the Packers needed. They needed that big weapon at wideout. Golden was their pick in the draft, but he's just too young. He can't be that guy yet. Enter Watson. Watson's always been the most talented receiver on this team the last few years, but he couldn't stay healthy. Now we're seeing what he looks like, and because Jordan Love is a great downfield passer. That's what's going to make Jordan Love's game better. But still, when you watch them play, there are times that you're like, just like any other team in the NFL, there's just okay, there's some issues, some warts, but the defense is still strong. The offense is now starting to pick things up, and that's why they're a 2.5-point road favorite. But remember this, or keep this in mind: the Packers are 3-1-1 straight up. 1-4 against the spread as a road favorite this year. The only the only spread win. No. That's something else. The only team in those 5 games on the road as a favorite that they've played that's a winning team is Pittsburgh. And they just became a winning team. So that's something to keep in mind. Because they're 7-15 in their last 22 ATS as a road favorite. Okay, now it's only 2.5, but it is what it is. Also, the Packers have only played 2 non-division winning teams this year, and they've split. Lose to the Eagles, beat the Steelers. Denver, meanwhile, 3-1 straight up, 3-0-1 against the spread as a dog this year. The only tie and loss happened in the same game. That's the 3-point road loss at the Chargers as a 3-point road dog. The Broncos, as we know, they've had now won. How many have they won now? 10 straight? I forget how many they've won now. I think 10 straight. So they just keep winning, and everybody else just keeps going, but. And hey, I'm all for that in certain situations, but they're the home dog. So if they were like the 3 or 4 point favorite, we'd be going, but they're getting 3 points at home, and they haven't lost in months. All right. So look, this is you might say, just like the Patriots, hey, maybe this is the week that the Patriots and the Broncos lose. That sooner or later you're going to lose, even though you're both at home, you're playing really good opponents. This is the week that'll happen. And that could very well be the case. But you might also say, hey, you know what? I'm getting Denver and the Patriots as home dogs on these monstrous winning streaks. Detroit and the Rams. And when was the last time the Lions were a dog of this number? I'll tell you. The 2023 NFC Championship game, when they played the Niners, lost to the Niners. That's how long it's been when Detroit was a 5.5 or larger dog. Not road, just road, not road. Well, of course, home, then I could be a dog that high. So just dog. Now, the bad part is they're 1-3 straight up and against the spread as a road dog this year. So this has not been a good role for them. But overall, even though they're just 2-1 this year, they're 19-3 ATS off a double-digit spread win. Meanwhile, the Rams get Stafford, who's having a fantastic year, to go up against his former team again. And just like I said with Seattle, though, remember, the Rams will be going to Seattle in just 4 days after this game on Thursday Night Football. So, look, I like the Rams in this one. The points are a little high, but the fact that Detroit has not been very good in this role this year as a dog, and I'm not convinced that just beating Dallas last Thursday meant that they're back. I'm not sold on that. So I don't want this line going up anymore. I'll say that. But 5.5, I'll probably take the Rams. The one good thing, though, if you look at it from Detroit's point of view, you're getting 2-1 on the money line. It's been since that championship game a couple of years ago that you've gotten 2-1 on the money line with the Lions. It is tempting. Minnesota and Dallas, the line similar at 5.5. We saw J.J. McCarthy have his best game by far. Look, I think that at some point, and I think we'll see it this year, as long as McCarthy stays healthy. I think when we still have 4 games left, I think you're going to see, or you need to see, but I think you're going to see by the end of this year, okay, the Vikings, they do have their quarterback. He just has to stay healthy and keep maturing. But people just, because they're not dialed into certain teams, they don't understand what goes on with every team in the NFL on a week in, week out basis, sometimes day to day. And Viking fans know exactly what I'm talking about. This team, because that's the first thing everybody wants to point to when we're talking about the Vikings and they're losing this year is, oh, look at J.J. McCarthy, or look at that quarterback difference with Sam Darnold and Jay. That's all they want to talk about. And what they don't understand is when you look at the Vikings this season. Matter of fact, I remember looking at their starting lineup last week. And I don't know if it's true, but it looked to me like I saw all 5 offensive line starters. I was like, I don't remember seeing those 5 guys together all season. Their offensive line has been so up and down with guys injured and out. And it might have been the first game all season. Matter of fact, let me type that in. Let me see if that's the case. Let's see. Vikings starting offensive line. All 5 started together for first time since. Let's see if they'll pick up on this. Okay. The Minnesota Vikings preferred starting offensive line unit played their first full game together against the Commanders. Prior to that, the same 5 players started a game together for the first time as a unit against the Packers week 12. Let's see. But left tackle Christian Darrisaw and left guard Donovan Mitchell left the game early in the second half. Okay. So that means they did. Okay. So they did all start the week before or 2 weeks before, but they didn't finish the game. Okay. So they were together. But anyway, see, 2 weeks ago, for the first time this season, all 5 projected opening days. So when they played the Packers, it was the first time. So that's the point. The point is that, I mean, you throw that into the mix, along with the fact that J.J. McCarthy was also hurt twice during the season. And Aaron Jones has missed a few games this season. And the defense has also had some issues that they weren't as strong as last year. And you could see why they have been the way they've been this year. But that is why you can't just blame the young quarterback. He has not played well. I'm not defending that at all. We all know that. We see it. He has not played well. But do not lose sight on the fact, because some people do, that they've made some terrible mistake because J.J. McCarthy was never even good in college or stuff like that. Because when you looked at his college numbers, you couldn't really see anything statistically based on the team he played with and the style of play that even when they won the national championship, they did not have a high-powered passing game. It wasn't that he was the problem. It was that they didn't have that game. They were a run-first team with a really good defense and special teams. That's how Harbaugh won that championship. The one thing, and really when you looked at McCarthy, I remember the one thing that we all looked at as Michigan fans, or when we were looking at projecting him at the next level, there was only one thing we ever looked at. That's it. And that was, does he have the deep passing game? Because he did not have an accurate, deep passing game in college. That was it. Everything else, accuracy, toughness, leadership, strength, arm strength, all of that, he's going to be fine. But this is the NFL, and you have to have a deep passing game. But I think that what really has hurt him, and look, he's admitted it. His mechanics have been all off and all of that, but that comes with repetition. The mechanics are not there yet because he hasn't been healthy. You have to remember he was out all last year. He comes back this year. He's out twice in 2 different occasions. All of that, all those mechanics come with repetition. So I have no problem for the people who say he's just not going to look good this year. He needs time. And can he develop? Maybe. But anybody that goes, oh, no, he's no good. He wasn't good in college. Or, yeah, I've seen enough of him. All that kind of thing. Just, no. All right, just pass on that. As far as this game is concerned, though, look, you got to take the Cowboys, I think. Because at home, they're 4-1-1 straight up. And the tie was the Packers, 4-2 ATS. And look, I still think what are the odds on the Cowboys winning the division? Because they lost last week, but the Eagles lost too. Because I still think the Cowboys can win this division. Matter of fact, I'm going to bet that they're going to win the division. And that's another thing I'll talk more about in the next couple of days. Oh, 7-1. I like it. So yeah, so that's the other thing I'm going to talk about is the fact that, it took me to college. That what I'm going to do, there's a reason that I am going to, remember I opened the show talking about how disappointed I was with college and all that. Well, on top of the college game, there's another thing that really hit me this week, and that was the Denver Raider game, the end of the game. And we all know what happened there. Because this year, there have been, look, if I'm wrong, and I'll bring this up earlier on the show, either tomorrow or Friday, when more people are probably watching earlier in the show. But if you had to pick one game in college football and the NFL this year that was the game that screwed someone that gambled on the game, whatever you want to say, which game would you pick for college and the pros? Well, the pros, this is the game I would pick, the Denver Raider game. And in college, I would pick the game where the Indiana-Iowa game, where the guy decided to run where Mendoza decided to run 45 yards for a safety when he didn't have to do that. I had them both. And not only did I have them both, but I had them both in big situations. Denver was my top pick last week. Indiana, remember I said, well, you probably might not remember, but the one viewers who have been here the longest remember that back then, what hurt me so much was that I had I think it was a 8 or 10 team parlay. And I only had 3 teams left. Indiana, and then there were 2 games late that night. I think one was at 8, and the other was like at 10:30 or something. And the Indiana one lost. Or I would have had just 2 games left on the parlay, which was a huge number, meaning that I could have just started the hedge with that second to last game and made some money off of it. Or who knows? I don't even remember what happened, to tell you the truth. I don't remember because I can't remember. But the fact is that combination of the Denver loss and everything that took place with college football this past week with the playoff, I just said, you know what? I've got to start spending a lot more time on other programming and other ways to build up, because that's what we're doing anyway, as far as our creative programming on this channel and maybe even on other channels that we're working on. And that was just a nail in the coffin. I said, fuck this. What the fuck am I doing here? Well, I'm spending all this time and this is the shit I'm getting back in return. Okay. Anyway. So I think the Cowboys are the way to go. If you just take a look at the offense right now, you just don't miss a beat. What could be an issue, though, first of all, you don't know if CeeDee Lamb's going to play. It looks like he's going to, but keep an eye on that. Secondly, Minnesota, even though their defense has kind of let them down a little bit more than last year, they still have a really good pass defense. And so if you take CeeDee Lamb out, or if he's not 100%, that's maybe a bad matchup for the Cowboys offense. And so we'll see, because we know the Cowboys can't stop anybody for the most part. I mean, they did a lot better the first couple of weeks with Quinn Williams, and then all of a sudden they looked at the old Cowboy defense against Detroit last week. And McCarthy's coming off his best game. So we'll see. Anyway, I still think the Cowboys are the way to go, though. And Pittsburgh and Miami will round it up. And I'll admit that I actually came very close to taking Pittsburgh as my top play of the week. If you look at this one, the Steelers are 3 points, but it's obvious. It's 21 degrees on Sunday. On Monday night, it looks like. So not only is it going to be really, really cold, but it's at night, which makes it colder, whatever it would have been during the day. So even though the Dolphins have won 4 straight, Pittsburgh is coming off their best win of the year, their biggest win of the year. And get this, in their last 7 games this year, 6 of them have been against winning teams. And even though they only went 2-4 in those games, that's still important to note. That they've been playing a lot of tough teams. That's a tough schedule. They're also 4-1 straight up and 3-2 against the spread versus losing teams this year, which will be playing on Monday night. So, you get that mix going up against the Dolphins. And even though the Dolphins had that big win to upset the Bills to start the winning streak, the last 3 games have been against losing teams. So now they can play another winning team here. And I think this is where the winning ends. I'm not going to see Pittsburgh putting that effort in last week against Baltimore on the road, winning such a pivotal game in the division, and then just giving it all up on a cold Monday night home game against the Miami Dolphins, who don't have the best track record in conditions on the road like this. So it's only 3, and I think that's the way to go with the Steelers. And that's going to wrap it up. So thanks for tuning in once again. Look, we got the bowl preview coming up next week. The sooner the better. I'm going to start getting to work on that real soon, because the sooner I can get onto work to that, the sooner I can start getting to everything else I'm referencing, because that's look, we're going to start putting together some really creative programming here. There's so many things that I'm working on and trying to fit which ones to start with. And are we putting it on this channel? Are we starting another channel with that? Are we going to do it on both channels? So, and this includes also, we have this show, like others, you can find on the R-Lads YouTube channel, on the R-Lads Football Network. We'll be starting to talk a lot more about the draft really soon. Matter of fact, this is the time of year to do it, because all of the conference first team, second teams come in, the national teams come in, the Heisman Awards, all that. And once they all start coming in, that's when it really becomes fun for real, when we could start spitting out, because they're already starting. A lot of other sites are already starting it. Our Lads has a couple of early mocks out, and we're going to really start, but taking a look at their rankings and what they would put out there as like a top 32. So this is something that we're going to work on really, really soon as well. So just look out for it. And that's why you want to subscribe to the channel, because they alert you to anytime there's a new show, something going on that you weren't, because we don't really have, besides doing this, and this is it, there's no schedule. I mean, yes, we still have the Thursday and the Friday show. Tomorrow, check us out, 1:00. Also, tomorrow, I've got 2 interviews tomorrow. 10 o'clock in the morning, and I got to get to bed soon. 10 o'clock in the morning, interviewing Richie O'Leary, who covers Rutgers football. So I'm excited about that. So we're going to talk a little bit there about Rutgers at 10 a.m. And then at 3 p.m. Eastern, I'm going to talk with Owen Buchanan, who covers the Texas A&M Aggies. So I told Owen it's perfect week to get him on, and I'm just going to point blank ask him, how for real is it for Texas A&M to win a national championship, and how are they going to do that? I want him to sell me on the fact that Texas A&M can do that as a 20-1 long shot, and we'll see what he says. I'll see how convinced I am that they can do it, because if anybody's going to convince me, it's going to be somebody that covers the team. And then, of course, in between, we got the Playbook ATS podcast scheduled for 1 o'clock. Now, we'll see whether or not that gets postponed to Friday, because Jim Feist was not on the show today, the Jim Feist handicapping show. He was under the weather, couldn't make it. So, we'll see what happens. That's a possibility if we feel like it'd be better to do the show with Jim. If he's got an extra day, maybe we do that on Friday. So, but for the most part, we still got the Thursday show. We still got the Friday show for normal weeks. I've got the bowl special next week. And after that, then these shows I do will not be 3 hours. I can guarantee you that. These will be an hour or less, just talking NFL. We'll throw in some other stuff here and there. But look, the point is, though, subscribe, keep following the channel, because we're going to come up with some different programming and new programming popping up all over the place in the coming weeks, and you want to look out for that. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for tuning in as well. Just the fact that anybody has been with us either for the full 3 hours or just checking us out for whatever it is that you wanted to hear in college or pro football. And I'll see you guys tomorrow morning when I talk some Rutgers football. Or if you're not interested in that, we'll see you hopefully tomorrow for the Playbook ATS podcast, or I'll see you later in the afternoon when I talk some Texas A&M football. No horse racing this week. We'll be back again next week for that. And I'll see you next time right here on Proline TV and the Our Lads Football Network.